And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Still in the process. I've gotten through about half of our winners, reached out to them. Unfortunately, every now and then we get caught up on somebody who's just not responding. So I apologize. Hopefully we'll make it through the list by tomorrow. That's my goal. And then I'll start getting everything out to everybody. Yes, again, thank you for everything you've done. If you want to go ahead right now and commit to being into the Charity Bowl Pick'em, that's the next thing we need to do. $20 buy-in, $10 of which will go to the winner, $10 of which will go to Helping Up Mission. The goal is $35, so we can bring up the total to $3,000. I'd love to have a couple bucks more than that. Like, that'd be great, but I want everybody to have a good chance of winning as well, so I think I'll probably cap it at like 40 if we were to get into that neighborhood, but 35 is the goal. So if you want to go ahead and commit to that, then I'm going to have you, I want to say this one, I'm going to have you send to Griffin because I just put all that money in. I need to keep it separated from, whatever. Just send it to me. Glenn-Clark on Venmo, Glenn Clark Radio on Cash App, Glenn Clark 180 on PayPal. $20, you're in. Brian Powell's already got it launched, so we'll send you the link. Obviously, we won't know the matchups until Sunday. I don't know how that works this year, too, with the playoff. I assume it means you can change your picks.
Yeah, well, I think you would always been able to change your picks.
But I assume after even if you get the first game wrong, like in the playoff?
Yeah. I think
if you got a semifinalist wrong,
so
you can still change your pick in the final?
Yeah, if the first round you pick, I don't know what, you pick Indiana to
beat
Penn State.
Penn State for example, last year it would have been Alabama, Michigan. If you had picked Alabama, you didn't immediately lose. This isn't like the NCAA tournament where you immediately lose all of the other games that you picked them for. You could go back and change your pick for Michigan, Washington if you believe that. If you previously thought that Washington would beat Alabama, but now that it's Michigan, you believe it's going to be Michigan, you can go back and change your pick.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now when we find out that's wrong, I'm going to blame you personally. That's just the way it's going to go.
In previous years, that is the way that
we'll see.
I've carried my business. So.
We will see. All right. Anyway, yes, we're doing a bowl pick'em. We want you to get in for it as we continue to lift up the Helping Up mission and try to get the folks that are there, the men and the women that are picking their lives up, the toiletries and underwear. That's where we are, by the way. Like, I hope you guys understand that because I feel like sometimes I say it kind of flippantly, but that's where we're at. That's what the needs are. The people that are at Helping Up mission need underwear. They need basic necessities in life. That's what we're doing here. And I do worry that sometimes we just say those things. You're like, oh, right, yeah. No, that's real. The people that you're helping need toothpaste. They need underwear. So I'm not trying to be a downer, but, like, think about that for a second. And also you could win $350 by getting into the Bowl Pick'em contest. So that's what we're doing. Please get in. Again, Glenn-Clark on Venmo, Glenn Clark 180 on PayPal, Glenn Clark Radio on Cash App, $20 buy-in as we continue to lift up Helping Up mission. All right. Now, that said, here's what's coming up on the program today. In a few minutes, we'll catch up with our buddy Torrey Smith, Ravens Super Bowl 47 champion, former Terp as well. Won another Super Bowl with another team, but they just beat the Ravens, so we don't want to talk about it. But we love Torrey. It's Giving Tuesday. He's always doing something amazing in our community. He'll tell us about that, but we'll also talk to him about the Ravens and where they are, all that coming up in a minute with Torrey Smith. Also this morning, Jori Epstein is a writer for Yahoo. She covers the NFL. She wrote about the Ravens' loss to the Eagles. We will talk to her about that. Plus our regular Tuesday stuff, Patrick Stevens, Washington Post, will join us to talk about the Terps. They got a big matchup against Ohio State tomorrow night in College Park. He'll tell us all about that. And, boy, it was a rough trip out to Canada for Towson. They dropped all 3 games. Yeah. Watched a little bit of 2 of them. I didn't watch any of the Irvine game. That one they weren't really in.
No, Irvine was winning the whole time. I did watch all 3. I mean, so I feel I'm not I'm not at that all that down on it. Just because
like they didn't get their asses kicked. Or
the
rims
in that arena were frozen, by the way. Just like
that's probably what happened.
They were in Canada, so
but now they were frozen for both teams.
Correct. They were.
Right.
They were. I mean, the under went 6-0 in all 6 games.
Well, how about that? That's very interesting.
Between all 4 teams. But May got hurt. He got a concussion in the first 5 minutes of the first game, and then Tejada still hasn't played yet. So like,
yeah,
I understand. So and I don't think either one is like long-term injury. So I'm not too worried.
It's also not that those games are going to determine their ability. Like you're either going to win the CAA or you're not. Like they weren't going to get an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, so they don't really matter. But it still would have been nice to have gotten.
Dylan Williamson can ball. That's
there you go. There you got that.
That's a good thing.
We'll talk to Patrick Stevens about it, and it's also Tuesday, so we'll preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday and find out if you should throw everything you have left FAAB-wise at Isaac Guerrendo, who you just dropped a couple of weeks ago. Rough. Also, Howie Salvin tight end now that Taysom Hill is also sidelined. Cool. We'll talk to that. Talk to Joe Serpico, PressBox Fantasy Football Analyst, about all of that. John Harbaugh met with the media yesterday and doubled down that there's no other plan. There's nothing else that they're doing related to Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker's the kicker. That's the way it's going to be. And we haven't heard anything that would contradict that. There hasn't been like an Adam Schefter report. Actually, the Ravens are bringing in 3 kickers this week. Haven't heard anything along those lines, which doesn't mean that there couldn't still be something. But in the little bit of reporting that I did about the subject, and it was a little bit of reporting, the folks that I reached out to last week, again, before the missed kicks, I got the sense that what they thought of the kickers that were available was also playing a role in their decision. And I had thought that maybe the weeks leading up to the bye were going to be big for Justin Tucker. I had suggested that after the Steelers game, that like these 2 weeks would be really big. And so that's why I was poking around a little bit, and the poking around that I did came away with maybe not so much, because there's just not options to be had. The Commanders had a kicker miss 2 kicks yesterday, and they rewarded him by putting him on the active roster. That's where we are, dog. Like, their best option is a guy that couldn't make a kick on Sunday. I'm not trying to suggest that Zane Gonzalez might not make an important field goal at some point, but that's the bar that they're dealing with. The bar is they just don't think these guys are good, and they're hoping that Justin Tucker can be better than this. Will he? Hey, we'll find out. That's all we can do, is we could just keep saying, to be determined, and maybe it'll be what sinks their season. Or maybe they'll be rewarded and Justin Tucker will make some big kicks and will be a difference maker down the stretch. It don't feel good in the moment. It doesn't feel likely, but this appears to be the reality for the Baltimore Ravens until we see otherwise. So continue to double down on that. Obviously, some of the other comments that John Harbaugh made yesterday got a little bit more play. I guess the Rashad Bateman one is probably more significant because Rashad Bateman's like a real football player for this team. He says it's not significant or long-term. Does that mean that Rashad Bateman will be on the field against the Giants? Don't know, but obviously good to have the bye. That buys them a little bit more time for Rashad Bateman to have a chance to get back out on the field. That's a good thing. By the way, I have to apologize. I swear to God, y'all, because a couple of you mentioned this yesterday after I said what I said about Arthur Millette. I utterly missed that they had put Arthur Millette on IR this weekend. That's my fault. It's on me. I had seen that they had put Charlie Kolar on IR, but like we expected them to put Charlie Kolar on IR, so that wasn't surprising. I had completely missed it. My bad. Now, my bad for a couple of reasons. There's other reasons why it's even more significant that I missed it. And what that means for the Arthur Millette show, y'all, because I had a few people reach out about it, I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I don't know. Yes, if you want to say the show's a curse I get it. I understand. It sucks, man. And John Harbaugh not committing to the idea that Arthur Millette's going to be back this season, that's devastating. That's devastating for him. It's devastating for us, obviously. Like, just devastating. What does it mean? Don't know. Don't know. Not there yet. Still trying to solve it. I hope that we could still maybe do a show. That'd be great. If not, I don't know what we're going to do. It sucks. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you something better. I wish I had an eloquent statement to make about it, but I don't. It's a bummer. It's a bummer for the team, obviously, because they invested in Arthur Millette, and he's barely been on the field this season, and that might be all they get out of him, and that sucks. And it really sucks for him, and getting to know Arthur Millette, he's devastated. Devastated by having to go through this, because what it meant to him to get that contract from the Ravens this offseason was overwhelming and emotional, and this is where things become very human. And like when you guys just say things like, "Oh, this guy's always hurt," something like that, like it's just brainless. It's beyond it's beyond idiocy. Like idiocy sneers at that type of stuff. You are the dumbest of the dumb and the lowest of the low. Like the suggestion that these guys, it kills these guys to not be able to play football. But anyway, so yeah, that was a comment that John Harbaugh suggesting that doesn't know if Arthur Millette is an option to return, because you can return twice from IR in the same season. That is something you're allowed to do. And that was how the question was put to him, and the response was not encouraging in terms of the likelihood. But if that wasn't encouraging, the response about a second question about Deontay Johnson, whew, boy. I'm stunned that it's 10:13 in the morning and we haven't already seen Deontay Johnson released. I am flummoxed. And I get that whatever the answer is, the Ravens aren't inclined to tell you about it. But it leads us into all these weird theories, right? Like, is it just that they think Deontay Johnson sucks and that's why they're not putting him on the field? Like, is it as simple as that? And then Deontay Johnson's pissed that he's not on the field, and so he's causing a problem, and now it goes beyond just, hey, that we got a depth chart. Like, it'd be one thing for John Harbaugh to say, well, we like all of our receivers, and Deontay's a part of that, and when his number's called, we'll go to him. But that's not what he's saying. He's making it very clear there's a bigger issue here. Is it an oil and water thing? Deontay Johnson showed up, was the exact same problem that he's been in other places. It's not working between he and whoever, Lamar, John, Todd Monken, position coach, whoever it is. It's an oil and water thing. He's not buying in. Don't know. I wondered aloud, remember when they brought in Deontay Johnson, we saw that he was out, fielding punts in practice. Well, the guy that's returning punts isn't returning punts. So did they maybe go to Deontay Johnson and say, dude, we need you to return punts? And he was like, I'm Deontay Johnson. I'm not doing that. And they said, all right, well, then you're not going to be out there. I don't know. And that's the problem with when John Harbaugh speaks as cryptically as he is. It leads us to these places. We are going to ask these questions. What possibly could be going on? Is there a personal issue with Deontay Johnson? Has he actually been a great citizen, but he has something going on in his personal life that's impacting him? We don't know. We have no idea. And again, this is
so the way this is going and the way Harbaugh's talked about it, you feel like we're past the point of no return with this,
that's what it feels like. I mean, these are the most cryptic possible answers that you could.
Yeah.
His answer yesterday, Jamison Hensley asked, I know we asked about Deontay Johnson after the game. Is there any other clarification that you have with that? Quote John Harbaugh, at this time, I'm going to have to wait just to clarify it. There's some moving parts there that we're going to have to figure out and explore and just see where we're at. I know that's not the answer you want, but that's the best I can do in fairness to everybody right now, unquote. What?
So, I mean...
what is that? Follow-up from Luke Jones. Are you expecting Deontay Johnson to continue to be on the team after the bye? About as direct as it can be. Quote, like I said, you just work it out and see where we're at over the next few days this week, unquote. That is about as much of a nope as you can possibly
I guess,
get.
so amid the Bateman injury, they're factoring in, maybe it doesn't matter what this we need now. We need this guy, and they're trying to wait and make sure they know that the Bateman injury's as unserious as it seems like they're portraying. And
maybe, but Bateman was hurt on Sunday and Deontay Johnson didn't get a snap. So,
yeah,
I mean, which smells like what you would do if you were worried about someone getting hurt and then you being on the hook for their contract.
Well, that's the other thing, though, right? Like they're.
But then why is he active?
Yeah.
Why don't you just release him before the game?
But also, they're not gonna. They're on the hook for at most what?
Right.
It was less than $1 million.
I understand, but if you're releasing him, I don't know. I guess you're on the hook for it anyway. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a free agent at the end of the year, right? Like you're not on the hook for anything next year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't. I mean, there might be an injury settlement situation that could be involved with that. It's bizarre, man. It's bizarre. And he would say, hey, well, you got to have him active just in case you have multiple wide receiver injuries and he's got to play. Well, you could activate Tez Walker. Like, you do have another receiver on the roster. But, by the way, how bad is that guy?
Jeez.
I don't know if he is or not. It's just,
well,
like, you'd rather give a roster spot to someone that you have no interest in putting on the field than that guy? Yes. What is going on there?
I mean, yeah, because like to your point about just not to backpedal too much, but like the kicker thing. I mean, we had 2 players that were active and did not, or no, Marcus Williams wasn't active, correct?
Marcus Williams was not active.
Okay, so never mind.
No.
I almost thought for a second that Marcus Williams and Deontay Johnson both played 0
Oh
snaps.
no, Marcus Williams was not active on Sunday.
Okay.
But yes, to the point, like
yeah,
and also as I said before, you don't have to put a kicker on the active roster. He could just be a practice squad call up, and you're running out of call ups on Chris Wormley, for example. He's going to have to go.
Yeah, he'd
on
still
the,
count as one of the 47 though, or whatever on Sunday. If you if you wanted
I think you can put
go
both,
to him mid game.
You can put both practice squad call ups on the roster. They can be active for the game. They don't have to factor into your inactives.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, both those guys can be. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
It's very complicated, man. Anyway, the moral of the story being, the Deontay Johnson thing just leaves you sitting here saying, "All right, dude, I guess it's done. I guess it's over." Now, why we're waiting? Like, if you're releasing Deontay Johnson, like, just release him. What is it? Yeah, and you could say maybe you're waiting for full clarity on Rashad Bateman, but like, if the problem with Deontay Johnson is the problem with Deontay Johnson, then you just need to sign a street free agent if Rashad Bateman's hurt. Like, if the problem with Deontay Johnson is so bad that you won't let him play a snap, then I don't think it matters how hurt Rashad Bateman is. Like, you didn't let him play a snap when Rashad Bateman got hurt. So, again, I'm speaking out of my ass, admittedly. None of us know. And whether there will be clarity or not, like, this could just be one of those things where we look back and say, dude, you remember that time that Deontay Johnson was a Raven for 5 minutes? Remember how weird that is? And that's the other thing, too, is it's still hard to, like, even if this is the end, even if they are going to release Deontay Johnson today, it's hard to beat them up about it because they paid nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, it was scratch the lottery ticket, see what happens. A lot of times you buy a lottery ticket and you lose. But you didn't buy a $50 lottery ticket. You bought a $2 lottery ticket.
Maybe is there still any reason to have an issue with that? Is that they didn't even scratch the ticket? Like, that's...
Well, they did. They put him on the field. They did.
He caught one
and he
pass.
fell down a bunch of times. Like, whatever happened, happened. But, like, yes, somebody would say, well, you knew what you were getting. You knew what again, and I say that not knowing if this is the issue. Like, that's the problem with having this conversation is I don't know what the actual problem is. I don't know if Deontay Johnson is being petulant and causing problems in the locker room, or if there's something else going on that we just simply don't know about. But none of it makes sense. You can't make it compute. I don't think it's worth getting that worked up about because Deontay Johnson, if they do lose Deontay Johnson, they're not losing someone that's been impactful. He's not at all part of the reason why the Ravens have won 8 games this season. Do you worry that he ends up signing in Kansas City and catches a huge ball against you in the playoffs? 100%. A lot of people think that's why Deontay Johnson was here to begin with. Maybe the Ravens are trying to work out a way that they can pay him to not play for anybody else. Like, hey, we don't want you on our team, but we don't want you playing for anybody else. I don't know. That's how cryptic this is. It's weird, man. It's weird.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can see
There's
that.
no way around it.
Playing defense. You don't want the Bills or the Chiefs.
That's the issue. That's why a lot of people think that they traded for Deontay Johnson to begin with. They didn't really want him. They just didn't want him going to, one of the contenders in the AFC to be an issue for them. And that might be part of what they're struggling with. Like, they don't really want him.
They're trying to talk him into going on IR.
I don't know. I don't know. It's so bizarre, man. It's so freaking bizarre. I assume there'll be some resolution to it this week. I guess if you get through the week and Deontay Johnson's still on the team, then, Lord, who knows? This is so freaking weird. Everything about it is just so bloody weird. But yeah, a very much no update from John Harbaugh yesterday about Deontay Johnson. All right, I will save my thoughts on the news from baseball yesterday. Doing a bang-up job.
Oh, you really wanted Kyle Higashioka.
Yeah, that's what it is. I've got a lot of thoughts about.
I
Kyle
did like
Higashioka
too. I mean, I'm fine with if McCann comes back though. I'll be fine.
We will talk about that. We will talk about that later on in the program. Today's show is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Griffin, what's going on at Live Casino?
You're getting $7 in free slot play every time that Baltimore's football team or Washington's football team scores touchdowns during home games. Live Rewards members get $7 in free slot play. Have to have your Live Rewards card inserted correctly into the slot machine. Any slot machine on the floor be actively playing in order to get your prize. But once those touchdowns score during home games for Baltimore and Washington, you get your $7 in free slot play. Valid for slot play only. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, we had to do this a little bit earlier on because of his schedule, but always appreciate the opportunity to catch up with the great Torrey Smith right here on GCR. Of course, it is Giving Tuesday, and we got a bit of a tradition on Giving Tuesday, catching up with our next guest, one of the best people I've gotten to know over the years and someone who is constantly giving back. Level 82 Foundation, and he's asking for your help today. He is Super Bowl champion, former Terp, former Raven, the great Torrey Smith with us on GCR. Torrey, it's Glenn. Always great to catch up, brother. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
I appreciate you having me, man.
It's always good to hear your voice, dude. I feel like there are still people that, know, here's what they know. They know, I know Torrey's doing great things for the community because it's something you've been synonymous with. But maybe they still don't fully know exactly what it is that you guys are doing with Level 82 and what you've been doing with the rec center. For people that still don't know all the details of what it is that you and your wife have committed to, can you try to explain a little bit and what it is that we need to do as we try to lift you guys up here on Giving Tuesday?
Man, it's really complex, and it evolves as we go. I always say our work exists where our feet are. And whatever that is, if we see a problem, we're going to try to identify it and fix it. But at the end of the day, our root and what we do in work is trying to help people reach their full potential. So holidays and drives and things, that's awesome, right? That's about part of the experience. And we're committed to that because, there were plenty of times our holidays wouldn't have existed without the support of others. So that's something that we enjoy. But the real change really started with what we're doing at Hilton Rec Center, which is currently shut down for renovations and will become a Baltimore Ravens Boys and Girls Club, which is really exciting. But also what we have the opportunity to do with the hundreds of young student athletes that we have the ability to mentor. We do programs with our seniors, and when I say seniors, I mean like my grandmother's peers. We have programs with them at the Rec Center. But also, having the ability to mentor these student athletes has been very rewarding. Because sport is just a tool, and honestly, when we talked when I retired some years ago, if you would have told me this is an aspect we would have been pouring into, I would have said absolutely not. But understanding the amount of people that participate in sports, the values that come and that you learn through sports, and honestly using it as the vessel to get them in, but also you can teach financial literacy. You can teach them how to deal with failure. You can teach them how to handle success. You can teach them how to be better peers, better friends. And we've been loving that aspect of it because my wife was a former athlete at the University of Maryland and myself as well. So it's like we're able to teach the real-life skills that we learn through sports and give them those values and teach them in not only through experience, through trial and error and failing, but also, watching them just learn and grow as people and therefore understanding their identity, which is something that I'm probably the most passionate about, is that you play sports. You're not an athlete, right? It's not who you are. And so helping kids identify that early has been extremely rewarding for us. And we've been able to see a lot of kids go out to schools, see schools, and there have been kids that we've seen that had zero interest in going to college, and now they are, right? Just because of being exposed to so many different things, from school tours to speakers or whatever it may be. So we've been doing a lot, and we're extremely thankful for the support that we've been able to receive.
Well, today, obviously being Giving Tuesday, you can go to Torrey's page at Torrey Smith WR, wide receiver at Torrey Smith WR. You can go right now to our Twitter account at Glenn Clark Radio because we've linked it up as well, and you can see what it is that Torrey and his wife are asking on this Giving Tuesday. And you're obviously like, you're putting your money where your mouth is, literally, in this process, Torrey.
I mean, she's the star of this whole thing. With my wife, her ability to organize and her ability to really just, she's a teacher. So there's a bonus there,
yes.
Right? Having her ability to understand what it's like. And honestly, me witnessing what it was like for her to be a teacher, I already knew it. From being a child, I tell people all the time, the most important people in my life that were not my mother, my grandmother, my immediate family were my teachers and my guidance counselors. And watching Chanel be a teacher at Dogwood Elementary over in Woodlawn, I was able to learn and see, the challenge that they've had. And honestly, part of our mission is supporting teachers as well, too. So we do whatever we can to help people really maximize it, and it's really a family affair for us.
And, of course, they have already chipped in the first $25,000 with a goal of being $50,000 to put towards Level 82 Foundation, the incredible work that you're doing. And, again, go Torrey Smith WR at Glenn Clark Radio right now, and you can click the link in order to get in. And what you guys are saying is, like, literally anything, even if it's $1, you guys would ask for that, right?
Absolutely. Like the pastor of the church says, man, there's no amount too big or too small. And I like to use the idea of numbers because it's social media, right? We're posting on social media and people see it. And it's like, man, I was just at the Ravens game, and if a third of the people gave $1, we would be at our goal, right? And that's not to take people's, hey, man, you got to do it. But it's like, hey, that's just a visual for how it could be and how how people doing a little can go a long way if it's a lot. Right, and I think that's what our goal is, using social media, using platforms like yourself who've always been very supportive of us. Like, hey, man, if a few people just donate $1, we'll be fine, right? Anything larger, great. But the reality of it is if we can get everyone to donate $1, it doesn't take everyone to be a hero, but everyone collectively together, we can do a lot of change.
It's amazing. And you know how much it means to me that you have remained committed to this place. I've told you it 1 billion times. I'll tell you it 1,000,001,000. It means the world. We need 1,000 more of you and your wife and your all's commitment. It's very powerful to me how much you love this city and how much you're willing to give. Torrey Smith with us this morning here on GCR. All right, so let's talk a little bit of football because I could sense in one particular tweet that you sent on Sunday, like is it emotional for you watching what it is that your former teammate Justin Tucker is going through right now? Like, it's awful for everybody because I like Justin. I've gotten to know him well over the years. You hate seeing this, but on the flip side, like, we also all understand, like, you got to get the job done. It's a tough moment right now.
Yeah, it is extremely tough, and I think it's a delicate situation. I think we're watching the greatest kicker of all time. He's struggling with the smaller stuff, right? I think earlier on he was missing the 50-plus yarders. We're like, okay. That's just because we're used to him being so great. Dudes are missing those all the time, right?
Right.
But it's like he's so great, you're not used to it. And, like, now it's led to, like, he's had a lot of misses, and that's not his norm. And so when you see someone who works as hard as they do, and then so this one is like, man, you want to see those results that, he's working towards. And that he's capable of doing, even more so than that. Like, it's not like we're banking on potential here. No, he's shown it. And then you see people, oh, man, he's getting old. No, he's not. Right. He makes 60-plus yarders in warm-ups. You see it every day, right? Like, I'm there pregame. I watch him warm up all the time. There's nothing wrong with his leg. It's not sure that there's clearly something going on up top. And so for me being in that position before as an athlete, knowing what it's like when you're down, knowing what it's like feeling like you've lost your team games, knowing what it's like to feel like, your city isn't on your side the same, right? Like, that's a tough pill to swallow, and I don't think fans really understand that because you look at it like social media. Justin probably has a picture of his son or something on there, and someone's like, dude, you need to worry about kicking the damn ball, right? Like, that's just how it goes. But the reality of it is when you talk about it from a pure football perspective, yes, there's a performance side. But when you look at Justin Tucker and you're like, oh, man, we need to fix our kicking situation, well, the answer is Justin Tucker.
Right.
Because I tell you this, there is no one else out there for you. So at this point, I think he needs to know that the support exists. I personally always hit him up, let him know that he's my favorite kicker, right? And I think it's just important for the fan base to kind of rally behind him because yes, him not making some kicks for sure have hurt a few games, but the reality of it is that we say, hey man, Justin Tucker is to blame for 2 to 3 of these losses. Cool, that's fair. He's also responsible for about 40 other wins.
That's fair. That's
right,
fair.
by himself.
That's fair.
Right, so it's like, man, you give him a little bit of grace to get it going, and I think by the time the playoffs hit, if he's ready to roll, I think everything will take care of itself.
I would wonder, like, if there would be an issue in the locker room where, like, guys would be like, yo, this guy's costing us games. But does being Justin Tucker outweigh that? Like, do you feel like the guys in the locker room
yes.
are like, yeah, okay, okay.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right? It's like feeling like, man, Lamar played a bad game. Lamar lost us the game. Okay. Lamar's won you way more games than he's lost you, right? And there are a lot of people out here that can't say that. Like,
Yep.
Think about how fans lose their minds. Lamar has to do this. He has to be more accurate. He has to run more. Whatever it may be. When Lamar doesn't play his best, okay, he's still a 2-time MVP. Very much could be number 3.
Yeah.
But Josh Allen's balling like crazy, so I'm starting to get a little bit more respect to Josh Allen there. Right? But the reality of it is this is one of the best players in the league, period. And I think with Tucker, he's the greatest of all time. He can get a little bit of grace. 2 things can be true. He needs to get his stuff together, and he can also have grace. And that's where I think everything lies with him.
I think it's interesting what you just brought up with Lamar and running a little bit more, right? Because everybody enjoyed him saying that his mama, cussed him out after the game on Sunday. That was pretty funny. It's a conversation I think a lot of us have had the last couple of years, right? And I do a show with Femi Amedejo, and Femi will bring up, look, Lamar had to make a decision about longevity, not because of the big hits, because we all know he doesn't take those big hits, but because the simple wear and tear of the totality of hits. And that was an interesting thought to me, but I think we're all kind of seeing the same thing. Like, it looks like there are running lanes there. In no ways is anybody really complaining or suggesting that there's a problem with Lamar Jackson because, my God, he's Lamar Jackson. But is there a place where you would say, hey, you might have to get back to running a little bit more, or take some of those lanes that are being given to you?
Yeah, I think you just take the game for what they are, right? The only time it comes to my mind when I think about Lamar running is if he forces the ball, like, down the field late or he's throwing it away. And it's like, dang, if you don't have a spy, and even if he does,
Right.
They can't really touch him,
Right. You're Lamar
Those
Jackson.
are the only times. But to me, I don't think you can ever knock a guy who's developed and is so comfortable in the pocket from making plays because it works both sides, right? Like, yes, he's phenomenal running the ball. Like, I'm not a guy that, like, I'll use the example of Coach Harbaugh going for it and 4th and 1 in his own territory.
Yeah.
Like, if it would have failed, I still would have been like, I respect it either way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same way I feel with Lamar. Like, Lamar, sure, he can run a little bit more, but Lamar's also made some big-time pass plays where he's extending plays. Like, look, Zay had a 40-yard gain early in the game last week because Lamar's extending a play, right? So it's like, you got to put yourself in the shoes of understanding, like, they're both working. I'm not going to lose my mind because he's not running as much as he used to because he's comfortable. That's a sign of growth. But the reality of it is he can take off like he showed in that last drive, and when nothing's there, and now he's picking up 30, 40 yards because he's Lamar Jackson.
Right. He's 1 of 1. Just another couple of minutes here with Torrey Smith on Giving Tuesday. Again, please go to our Twitter account or his Twitter account. See how you can make a difference for Level 82. I'm going to hop in as always because I believe in it. I hope you will as well. Torrey, if I could, because you would be the perfect person for this perspective. We saw some emotions on Sunday as the offense wasn't clicking in the second half, and particularly Zay Flowers was demonstrative in his emotions, and I think everybody in this town is a Zay Flowers fan. I wonder if you could explain, is that something that teams want? Like, everybody always say, like, oh, you don't want guys to be, thinking about themselves, but do you want that type of passion, that type of if things aren't going well, you want to see guys pissed off about it and not like, whatever, who cares?
That's a tough one, right?
Okay.
And I say that because you don't know how many games or times I've been absolutely pissed on the field.
Sure.
But I'm not going to let everyone else know it.
Okay.
Right? And I think, and when I say everyone else, I'm mainly talking to people like yourself and myself now on the opposite side of the aisle.
Right.
Right? Like, it's okay for, your team to know that you're upset or things aren't going the way it is, right? But it's another thing when it becomes a distraction from public perception. As a player, I've kind of always felt like, I never want to throw anyone under a bus because I know there's going to be a time where I want that same kind of grace.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of just how I moved about it. But to me, it's like, passion is a part of it. People work their tails off, and like you want the opportunity to help. Like you don't really, if you ever notice, the trend is I don't know many people that are passionate and complaining when their team is winning.
Fair,
right?
Life is
It
good.
only happens when It only happens when you're failing, right? And the reason for that is I feel like I can do something to help us win, or we're missing opportunities and we're not playing the way we're supposed to play. So I think it's a fine line, right? You don't want to have things become like you respect passion, you understand it, but at the same time, it's like you never want to throw somebody under the bus and feel like you throw somebody under the bus, because whether you do or not, I've learned, and I see it more and more on the opposite side of the house, so respect to the media guys like yourself.
Yeah.
I see it completely different on the other side watching the game. If you're in the stadium and you're looking, or even if you're watching TV, if I'm wide open as a receiver and you miss me and I don't say anything, it oftentimes doesn't get any attention. But if I give an attitude or I show bad body language, now everyone's going to dive into it. And now that doesn't say anything but, hey, man, my quarterback can't read coverage. Right?
Really...
He's missing throws, right? And I think that's the tough part as an athlete in general.
It's so funny you say that, right? Because obviously, as you know, I'm not an athlete. I was extraordinarily low level in my athletic career. But like I don't know, I have this weird thing where as long as it's not demonstrative in somebody's face or throwing somebody under the bus, I don't know that it's ever bothered me that people like I kind of like the idea that you're pissed off too. It's a weird thing, right? And like maybe that's just the difference in you're an athlete and you're sensitive to the way that guys like me overanalyze things. And I don't know. It's never bothered me that someone be mad. I want you to be mad, right? Like I want you to show them. Although that said, of course,
it's a fine line though,
yeah.
right? Like think about it. Lamar's gonna have to answer questions, and they specifically is gonna have to answer questions about why he was mad that Lamar didn't see him wide open.
It's true.
That happens on every drive. You can find a receiver who's highly upset. He's open every drive. Someone's open every drive where the quarterback missed him and it would have been a touchdown, right? Every single drive. You can find one.
Yep.
I promise you.
Yep.
But then we don't talk about it every single time because there's normally not a major reaction that the attention gets drawn to it, right? And so I think that's the fine line in terms of when it comes to protecting your guys. And again, I've been there. Like I'm not saying that from a judgmental perspective of say, like I know for sure there's been a couple times in my career where like you're so caught up in it. You're like, I can remember one specifically in San Francisco. Like they were struggling throwing the ball to me in general, and then I just remember Cap. I had this guy beat, and I had him whooped, and he threw it short, and like I had him probably beat by 4 or 5 yards. He throws it short, back shoulder, and I didn't even have a chance to touch the ball. Like it was so far out of bounds and short that it wasn't even close, and I just was pissed and just walked straight to the seat, straight to the bench. Like my reaction was probably like a robot. Like you spin, realize you can't catch it, and my body was started like prancing right to the sideline and sat straight down. Right? And so for that couple of seconds that the camera's on you, right, I can acknowledge then and now, like I was just pissed off in the moment, but then it drew so much attention to our quarterback who was struggling at the time. Right? And that's a negative thing for the team to carry. Because now I'm dealing with questions afterwards like, hey, you're normally a very calm guy. Why were you so upset that he missed you when you were winning by 5 yards? Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like it just leads to negative distractions, and, you don't want your guys that you love and care about to have to deal with it. So it's just about having that passion, but controlling your emotions.
If you go right now to level82.org, up at the top of the page, there's a link for hashtag Giving Tuesday that you can click on. And, of course, as I mentioned, you can go to the Torrey's Twitter account. You can go to our Twitter account. Please get in anything you can give this Giving Tuesday to lift up what it is that Torrey and Chanel and their family have committed to in our city. And a reminder, Torrey's not from here, but this is how much he cares about our city. And I can only say it so many times. You know how much that means to me, and I truly appreciate it. Torrey, always appreciative of you and the time that you take and how much you care about this community. Looking forward to seeing you again here real soon. Appreciate you spending time with us this morning, man. Very happy holidays to you and to your family.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Great. Torrey Smith with us here on GCR. Appreciate him taking the time for us. We were just talking about Zay Flowers there for a second. So a reminder that you can get your tickets now for the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation Holla Zay Party on December 9th. That's next Monday night at the Evolved Hospitality Catering Hall in Fallston with special guest host Zay Flowers. The event includes a live podcast show, audience Q&A, meet and greet, and photo op with the Raven Star wide receiver. Enjoy a tailgate buffet from three-time Best of Baltimore chef Zach Trabold of the renowned The Local Restaurants. Donate a toy to support the children at St. Vincent's Villa and receive an autographed picture from Zay. Tickets are $100 each. They're available now. bidpal.net/HollaZay, HOLIZAY 24. HollaZay 24. bidpal.net/HollaZay 24. All right, every Tuesday we catch up with our buddy Patrick Stevens, Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, at Discourse, D1S Course on Blue Sky. Patrick, good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm just chipper.
Oh, yeah? What's going on in your world? What's happening?
It's nothing to get into, but I'm feeling a little feisty.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I just thought you were looking ahead to the big Coppin State UMES showdown that you're going to have the chance.
well,
to take
you know, I'm glad that you brought it up. That's two of the bottom three teams in the net. I mean, you can get your tickets now for March 3rd.
All right, so Maryland plays two, lower level teams this week. They get the job done in both games. Now they have to face their first Big Ten competition of the season tomorrow night in Ohio State, and then Sunday on the road at Purdue. Where are you with where Maryland is in relation to those teams going into these first Big Ten games of the season?
I mean, I don't see much of a reason why Maryland couldn't be competitive in both of those games. I mean, I don't know that there is I certainly don't think that Purdue is as good as it was last year. I think it's still really good, but you know, there's a 7'4" guy that they used to have that's no longer there. So that's a big difference. And I think Ohio State has been competitive, obviously, in its games so far. It lost 2 out of 3 of the real tests that it's had. It lost in overtime last week to Pitt at home. So to me, it feels like if you're Maryland, a split would be just fine. You got the split of your real games in November, like the real tests, and I think simply holding serve at home and basically kind of treating that Purdue game kind of like house money, because as a general rule, it's not easy to go into West Lafayette and win. So if they can do that, I think that qualifies as a good week for Maryland, and there's certainly little that suggests that Maryland can't be a team that at least bobs around in the top half of the Big Ten throughout this season. Certainly no reason to think that they can't be competitive based on what we've seen so far.
We referenced the net rankings that came out for the first time this week, and it does have Maryland in the top 25. Is that don't read in too much into it until they've played more legitimate competition type of situation?
Well, a lot of what that says is that they have blown out bad teams. Yeah. And so this is a team that already has 5 victories by 30 points. The last time Maryland did that in a full season was in 2010-11, Gary Williams' last season. The last time they did it, I think in the first 10 games of the season was the Steve Francis year. So, remember last year we heard so much about, the Big 12 is gaming the net. Well, basically all they were doing was blowing people out in non-conference play. And so I think Kevin Willard kind of looked at that and said, let's go play as weak a non-conference schedule aside from 2 or 3 games as possible and pile up a bunch of points. And so, a game like beating Canisius by 71 helps on that front. You kind of look through it, like Alcorn State the other day was a 38-point game. Even the Bucknell game by 24 points, you're certainly not going to get dinged for that. So I think the net ranking for the moment is at least as much indicative just about the scoring disparity to this point as anything else. It certainly doesn't have as much to do with the actual strength of the non-conference schedule, which it's actually more favorably viewed by the net than it is by KenPom, which has it at 356 out of 364 teams. So I think you know what you have there and the intent that's been behind it. But that having been said, I would say kind of wait a little bit and see exactly how they hold up against better teams.
I want to run this one by you. It's something we were talking about with Seth Greenberg last week. One thing that we have come to expect from Kevin Willard teams at Maryland is that they get the job done defensively. Is there anything this season that maybe makes you wonder if they're not, as woeful as they were offensively a year ago, do we know yet that this year's team is as good as last year's team was defensively?
I don't know, and that's a pretty high bar to reach.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is going to be as good a team defensively, but let's put it this way. I think if we're being realistic, last year's team was probably about a 2 or a 3 on offense and about a 9.5 on defense. And I think if Kevin Willard had the choice of that or having a team that's a 7 or an 8 on offense and maybe an 8.5 on defense, I think he's going to go for what this is, which is a lot closer to that. I think the one thing that does stand out to this point that Maryland is forcing a lot more turnovers than it did last season. And heavens knows that team could have used that to be able to generate some easy buckets. And so that to me is kind of the striking thing watching them, a team that didn't do it as much on Sunday against Alcorn, actually, and credit to them for actually playing pretty well for stretches in that game. But to me, that's the thing that stands out the most, is that maybe this is not as good a half-court defensive team as what Maryland had last season, but it's certainly creating some headaches and with the press and being able to create some transition buckets.
Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. Patrick, on the local front, obviously a disappointing trip to Canada for Towson, but the injuries continue to pile up. I don't know that it's necessarily a representation of what Towson is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, and they were certainly competitive against Kennesaw State.
Yep.
They were in it against UC Irvine. I mean, those are not horrendous-looking performances, certainly not on defense. I mean, I think if you are playing teams like UC Irvine and giving up about a point per possession, I think that gives you a chance. And, you look at it, and Tyler Tejada's still not back. I know that they're optimistic that he'll be back soon, but he's obviously not back yet. Christian May missed a couple games up there. I mean, at the end of the day, you're down 2 starters, and you're in particular against Irvine and Kent State, and to a lesser extent Kennesaw, which has shown some decent things in the early going. But you're talking about legitimate NCAA tournament contenders, particularly Irvine, that's now 8-0 and has really handled its business. So, you scored 60 points against a really strong defensive team there. I don't think this is who Towson is, assuming it does get to full strength. But let's face it, like, everything for this team is ultimately going to come down to what they hope is 3 days in March. So the task for them the rest of the way, candidly, is make it so that you finish in the top 4 in the CAA, preferably as high as possible, and then set yourself up to be playing your best basketball when March arrives.
And then on the national front, everything, right? Like, there couldn't have been more going on, and I tried to watch as much of it as I could over the past week. Biggest storylines for you from a massive week of obviously these MTE events, and I know that it actually might even start with the negative, right? And Dan Hurley kind of taking his ball and going home.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of amazing that 2 national titles brings not an iota of happiness there, right? Instead, it brings a sense that every call should go your way. I mean, it kind of reminds me of somebody else that, that's prominent. It feels like everything should go their way. But anyway, Connecticut losing 3 games in Maui, that's sort of the lightning bolt right there. And they were able to come home and get well against Maryland Eastern Shore on Saturday. By the way, how much fun did that have to be, flying home overnight Wednesday and then having less than 48 hours basically to get ready for any kind of game. So, I think the one of the big takeaways coming out of Maui is Auburn winning that thing. Auburn has 4 high-end wins already right now: Houston, Iowa State, Carolina, and Memphis. And standard issue versus Pearl team, tons of athletes.
Yep.
Will get after you, everything. So they're obviously really good. I would tell you one of the things at the Atlantis event that we saw was the fact that both Louisville and West Virginia with first-year coaches had really, really good performances down there. Louisville lost the title game to Oklahoma, and there's another team that's coming off a tough season. But, Louisville beats Indiana, and by the way, that's just further evidence that the Mike Woodson era at Indiana continues to be a major disappointment.
Yeah, you're using the word beat. The word beat is doing a lot of work there. They destroyed them, and it was non-competitive.
They destroyed them. Yeah, it was a 28-point game, and the Hoosiers basically looked utterly uninterested in playing it. So, Louisville gets those 2 wins. They lose Keyshawn Pryor for the year with an ACL tear, which is a bit of a hit. West Virginia got both Gonzaga and Arizona, played 3 overtime games in 3 days down there. So that's a team that I think certainly after, kind of having that transitional year last season after Bob Huggins was fired, that suddenly looks like a team that's capable of doing some damage. So plenty of stuff that, we haven't even touched on a number of other events.
The Kansas Duke game obviously lived up to the billing.
Kansas Duke game lives up to the billing, and if you're Duke, you just basically say you played a road trip essentially where you beat Arizona and you lost to Kansas, and you got a young team and this, that, and the other, and Duke's still playing pretty good defense when you size it all up. So, and Kansas is obviously really good and does not have the problem that it had last year. There is not a depth concern when it comes to the Jayhawks at this point. So. Obviously, plenty to go off of from the national perspective last week, and now you've got the ACC-SEC Challenge, which looks like a huge situation for the ACC, given that the number of high-end wins that it collected in November is not particularly high. You can already hear the whining coming in February and March about how, why does everybody view this as a 4-bid league? Well, because you didn't go and win non-conference games that you needed to win. And that's really a big issue. You can look at the SEC having tremendous success to this point. And even leagues like the Big East and the Big 12 and Big 10 have acquitted themselves well. But the ACC, I think, has like 6 or 7 top 50 wins at this point, with 6 losses outside the top 100, and that's 18 teams. So there's not a whole lot of good, and there's more bad than there should be that's going to get cycled in once everybody starts playing each other. So games this week like Duke playing Auburn, Clemson playing Kentucky, I think North Carolina plays Alabama. Like those are really significant games for everybody in that conference, because candidly, I'm not sure anybody has really done their share of the work in that league other than maybe Pitt, which has victories over Ohio State and LSU, and that might even be stretching it a bit.
Yeah, Kentucky-Clemson with the friendly 9:30 Eastern tip time tonight for ESPN.
Yeah, tons of fun there.
Yeah.
It is amazing how you see some of those things. So not only do you have that tonight, and granted that's going to be one of your prominent games, and this other one that I'm going to mention is not, but you have Cal playing a 4:00 Pacific, 6:00 Central game at Missouri.
Sure.
On the same night.
Sure. So yeah, these things make sense. These things it's college basketball. All right, there you go. That's what we got. Let's play our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this particular player played for or managed? And Patrick, I begin with a manager that I acknowledge, or obviously a split is what we've been doing. I struggled mightily with his teams that he played for. 2 teams that he has managed, and none of them were teams that he had played for. He played for 6 other teams. Godspeed, Bud Black is the first name.
All right, Bud Black's managerial teams are San Diego and Colorado,
of course,
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Bud Black is a player. Kansas City.
Yes.
He played in Cleveland, correct?
Yes.
He played in Toronto.
Yes. By the way, I read it wrong. It's 5 teams as a player, so I apologize.
All right. He was definitely a San Francisco Giant.
Yes. So the only one you're missing is actually where he started his career in '81, and I got to pull it up. I don't think it was. I'll tell you in 2 seconds how many it was. It wasn't significant.
It was not significant where Bud Black started.
In
his
fact,
career.
it was 2 relief appearances.
Two relief apperances for Bud Black.
This will come up again with another name that we're doing.
Okay. Bud Black. Trying to remember where he began his career. Was he a twin?
Not a twin. It was 2 games at 1 combined inning with the Seattle Mariners. Was where Bud Black began his career. I did not know. You did way better than I would have done on Bud Black. 4 teams for a former Rookie of the Year and a one-time All-Star. Ben Grieve is the next name.
I'm going to have more problems with that. Oakland and Tampa.
Yeah, I got those 2 as well. There is another multi-year stint that I vaguely remembered, but not well.
Okay. I don't know. Kansas City, maybe?
Not Kansas City, no.
Was he in Toronto at all?
It was Milwaukee and the Cubs were the others.
Okay.
And then finally,
maybe vaguely remembering the Cubs.
That Cubs was the one
really.
that after I saw it, I vaguely remembered him as a Cub. And then someone who I believe his career is now over. 5 teams for 2-time All-Star Julio Teheran, and it does not include, of course, the Baltimore Orioles because he did not make an appearance for the Baltimore Orioles last season.
He did not make an appearance in Baltimore.
But he did make an appearance elsewhere last year that I had forgotten about.
Yes. So he was in Atlanta for sure.
Of course.
He was an Angel for sure.
He was.
He was a Brewer for sure.
He was.
He was a Met last year for a game, correct?
He was, correct. That's amazing. In 2021, he had a cameo somewhere.
In 2021, he had a cameo somewhere.
It was oh God, it was 1 start there too. How? How is this possible?
I think I might take that Twins flyer again.
Oh,
here.
So close geographically. Detroit.
Okay.
Detroit is the play. All right, what's the schedule look like for you this week, sir?
So George Mason tonight. They play UNC Asheville, then Maryland, Ohio State tomorrow. Heading up to Georgetown, West Virginia for the Post on Friday. Back to Mason on Saturday. They play Tulane. And then Sunday, Mount St. Mary's facing Fairfield in their first conference home game of the season. Conference season is here not just in the Big Ten, but in a handful of other leagues as well so far.
At Discourse, D1S Course on Blue Sky is the place to find him now. Patrick Stevens, always appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday, all right?
All right. Take care, Glenn.
Thanks, buddy. Patrick Stevens with us here on GCR. Can we break or? Yes, we'll grab a break when we come back in. Jori Epstein, Yahoo Sports. We'll talk some more Ravens with her. It's GCR.
The top high school basketball talent from across the country returns to the Wycomico Civic Center December 26th through 30th for the Governor's Challenge presented by Pohanka of Salisbury. Witness 5 full days of elite competition featuring over 140 high school basketball teams from 16 states plus Canada. Multiple top 10 teams and nationally ranked players will display their talents on the court. Don't miss the best experience in high school hoops. For tickets and info, visit govchallenge.org.
Hey Baltimore, it's number 10, Arthur Millette, and I'm hoping you'll slot us in all season long for the Arthur Millette Show. We'll be traveling around the region all season, giving you the chance to get to know me and my teammates. There will be some football talk and a lot more. You can watch this show live on PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages and listen every Friday night on 105.7 The Fan. Find out more at PressBoxOnline.com/Millette. The Arthur Millette Show, the only show in town that's a work of art.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Visit Harford County this holiday season for a brand new event. You'll feel like you stepped into a holiday movie. Harford Holidays is overflowing with the spirit of the holiday season. You'll be amazed by the jaw-dropping light displays, thrilled by a visit to Santa's workshop, and have the holiday time of your life with sleigh rides, a special vendor village, s'mores making stations, and so much more. It's a holiday light experience, new at Ripken Stadium, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, December 6th through December 22nd. For ticket information, head to visitharford.com. You'll have the happiest holiday season ever.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR to continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Obviously, no Project Game Day this week because the Ravens are off, but we'll be back in action following the Giants game 1 week from Sunday. Make sure you come join us, PressBoxOnline.com/game day. Myself, Rita, Femi, KZ, Stecca, the whole crew after every game all season long. PressBoxOnline.com/game day. Project Game Day is brought to you by Easy Pass, 1-800-GAMBLER, and Harford Holiday. So make sure you come hang out with us. Of course, the Ravens enter the bye week at 8-5 after a bitter setback against the Eagles on Sunday. Joining us now to tell us a little bit more about that. She asked the question at Yahoo, how concerned should they be and what comes next? Jori Epstein is with us this morning here on GCR. Jori, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. How concerned should we be about the Baltimore Ravens and particularly the struggles of Justin Tucker?
Absolutely. Great to be with you, Glenn. And I do think that concern is valid. I think the question the Ravens will have to ask themselves is they've set up some sort of decision-making calculus, the way that all teams do, of when do we want to kick a field goal? What's our target range? How does that depend based off where you are in the game, what the score is, I mean, all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're going to have to adjust their decision-making calculus based off what Justin Tucker is doing this year. Look, he's still a really good kicker, and I'm not saying replace him. I think that you can't ignore all the kicks he's made, but he's missed a career-high 10 this season. He missed 2 field goals and an extra point this past week. That's 3 kicks in 1 week. And they've now lost multiple games by a margin that is less than the amount of points they would have got if Justin had made all his kicks. Yep. And so I think you have to ask yourself, okay, he hasn't missed from under 40. He's probably fine there unless you count extra points, which I think is just probably a different element. But if we're talking field goals specifically, all of his misses have been 40 and up. And so you just have to ask yourself, do you feel confident in that? And at what point? I think they need to, during their bye week, have a threshold at which they say, we don't trust him in this situation because this team was too close last year in the playoffs. And frankly, adding Derrick Henry is too close this year to allow a playoff run to be ruined by a missed kick.
So I think there's a couple of things that are interesting here, Jori, because I was talking to Jay Feely about this topic yesterday, and he pointed out, like, look, assuming that Justin Tucker is washed is kind of nonsense. It's not like he physically doesn't have the ability to make the kick. He's 35 years old. And he pointed out that, hey, the 2 kickers that we would argue are maybe the best kickers in the NFL, Chris Boswell, and then Harrison Butker if he were healthy. They were both 70% kickers just 2 years ago. So I think it's what makes all of this so complicated. The Ravens continue to say they're going to stick with Justin Tucker, but Ravens fans find themselves asking the question, is someone that you would pull off the street right now a better option than someone that's kicking at a 70% clip?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the question we often have to ask ourselves when fans say, the quarterback's not doing enough, the head coach isn't doing enough, I don't like the play caller, is until you have a replacement that is going to be, if not reliably better, at least you can feel confident that it's going to be better, you don't replace someone. And kicking like quarterbacks, the demand far outsees the supply in the NFL. What I thought was interesting is that I've covered kickers through my time covering the Cowboys, now in the national lens, who have missed a bunch of kicks in a row. And sometimes they get into this slump, they get the yips, or they get some sort of like groin pull type injury that really influences their technique. And often they can't come back to make the kick later in the game. For Justin to miss a kick and then make a 50-yarder later in the game, for him to miss an extra point and then make one later, suggests to me that he has both the technique, the health, and the mental toughness to still make it. And so I think they need to be cognizant of this, but I agree, it is not time to expect that another kicker would do better than Justin Tucker is doing.
Jori Epstein, Yahoo Sports, with us here on GCR. Jori, I think one of the issues that I have is that, yes, the Justin Tucker thing is the loudest thing. It's the blinking, flashing light right now, and it's sort of the center of the universe. But I don't know that we can also say it's the singular story of why it is the Ravens lost to the Eagles and why they've lost 2 out of their last 3 games. Yes, if he makes all those kicks, you think that situations are different, but they've struggled more offensively in those 2 games than they have struggled in any other game that they have played this season, and a lot of it, I think, starts up front. But I feel like we've had this conversation of, hey, if the Ravens can keep doing this offensively, then maybe some of these other things don't matter. I just don't know now if you can assume they're going to be able to keep doing this offensively in every game based on the fact that 2 teams have prevented it in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's super reasonable. I think that you are what your record says you are, and you also are what your recent performance say what you are. And I think that when you look at what the Chargers have done against them, the Eagles, the Steelers, I mean, all of these teams are starting to find some answers for how to defend them. I think early in the year, the combination of Lamar and Derrick Henry was just so unstoppable. I also think their strength of schedule was a little bit easier early in the year. It's not terrible the rest of the regular season, but the question is never going to be, can you beat the Browns in Week 18? The question is going to be, can you beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship or the Bills? And I do think that a team like Buffalo, for example, who they may very well see on the AFC playoff road, feels more complete and more consistent than the Baltimore Ravens do right now.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, and then we obviously have to remember that the Ravens blew out the Bills when they played them earlier this season. So
right.
I don't know what to make of it, because I think we would all feel the exact same way. At the moment, the Bills look like a team that's clicking on all cylinders, but it was a good matchup for Baltimore earlier in the year. It's a very weird scenario to be in. Jori, is there anything from a positive standpoint that can be taken from on the flip side of the offensive struggles in the last 3 weeks? What was the worst pass defense in football by no means has been dominant the last few weeks, but has been far more competent. This is, if they can play like this with the offense they had earlier on in the season, you'd find yourself saying, well, that's Super Bowl worthy. You can do that and win a championship. Can they be encouraged by the trajectory of particularly their pass defense over these last few weeks?
I think they definitely can, and it goes back to what you were saying about how the Bills and Ravens game earlier in the season looked, because to me it's not about what you look like in September. It's especially when you have a new coordinator in the role, which the Ravens do on defense. You have to say, well, where are we now? How are they rounding into form? The Eagles too, Vic Fangio, they had to figure it out the first couple weeks, and now they've rounded into form. And so I think if you say, can you hold your own against Bo Nix, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, if you can do that, then your pass defense should be able to hold up in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that would be it's encouraging, to say the least. Of course, it needs to be matched with the flip side of this. And I guess that, part of this, too, for me is that, Jori, I would say I acknowledge the struggles of the Ravens recently, and I'm concerned about it. And I know that the Bills look good, but I still don't know that there's any team in the AFC that I look at and say, well, yeah, but the Ravens can't beat them. I'm not trying to be dismissive of any of them. The Bills are playing well, but I don't know that I look at them, any of them right now, and say they're on a different level overall as a football team than the Ravens are.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that when you look at a team like the Chiefs or the Bills, both of them are the teams that are most likely to beat the Ravens, but neither of those games would I go in saying the Ravens don't have a chance. And everyone else, I would say, I would feel more confident in the Ravens and who they're going against. And I mean, this is also interesting because obviously there has been some degree of a narrative in recent years, especially before last year, of can Lamar get over the playoff hump?
Right.
And I just think when you look at statistically, look, 31 of 32 teams, like 97% of the league does not ultimately win a league. To me, not being able to get over the playoff hump is not being able to win a game, not being able to make it to the conference championship. I came up in this industry my first 7 years in Dallas. They have not been to a conference championship game since the 1995 season. So when you look at the games that Lamar has won, when you look at him making it to the AFC championship last year, that is not getting over the playoff hump. He hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but to me, I don't think Lamar has a playoff problem after that.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I think there's a specific Chiefs Steelers problem that is real, right? Like he has in his career 2 combined wins over those teams. Like I think that's a fair. To say that those 2 teams have proven to be kind of, whether you want to say kryptonite, whatever word you want to come up with, I think that's a fair thing to say about Lamar Jackson. Like, those are likely to be 2 of the teams that stand in your way. You got to prove that you can get past those teams.
I think that's true, and I think part of that is a psychological element, and part of that is, look, the whole idea of styles make fights in the NFL. Some teams are just going to be better matchups. Some teams are going to be able to contain Lamar better. And then if you can contain Lamar, it's harder for Lamar and Derrick Henry to play off each other. So I don't think this is just like a big brother, little brother thing. I think part of this is what specifically does the opponent have to stop you, and is that what is needed to stop you?
Let me ask on the other side of this. The Eagles come into Baltimore and beat the Ravens. They haven't lost a game this season where A.J. Brown has been on the field. Who's really the team to beat in the NFC? Is it Detroit or is it maybe Philadelphia?
Yeah, it's a great point. What's interesting about the Eagles, whether it's A.J. Brown or Lane Johnson, I was actually wondering this past week when Devonta Smith was out if it was going to impact them. Obviously, they were able to get the win, and they looked really good. Their offense, especially wearing down the Ravens and Saquon having his breakout toward the end of the game. The Eagles, every team is going to be worse if their stars are injured, but the Eagles built their team and particularly their offense in a way that they have such high caliber talent that there is more of a drop-off if their stars are injured than others, because they do rely on Jalen and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and now Saquon Barkley in addition to that offensive line more than some teams rely on them relative to other positions. So I do think that they need A.J. Brown if they want to make a playoff run. I still believe more in Detroit than I do Philly. I think any game they have against each other would be pretty impressive. But Detroit is just dominating at such a level, and they've been doing this consistently for really 2.5 years now, that I think they should still be the favorite. But I wouldn't put it past them any given Sunday for Philadelphia to be able to get one over on them.
All right, let me pose this one to you because it's relevant within the division. I was the person that couldn't quit the Bengals. I just couldn't believe that they weren't still going to be a factor in this, and I 1,000% expected them to beat the Steelers coming off their bye. Like I have always believed that offense is predictive. Defense, I'm wrong. Like, it's over. It's done. Like, it's past last call now for the Bengals. Is there real risk based on they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and they're gonna go sideways this season? Is there real risk about Zach Taylor's future in Cincinnati moving forward?
No, I don't think so at all. I think, look, this is a team that, yes, they have, I think it's a 3 or 4% chance. 2% chance of making the playoffs according to Next Gen Stats playoff probability. So they're not going to make it, but I think Zach Taylor is primarily in charge of the offense, and his defense has been better in recent years. So when you see something like this, you don't want to get rid of the play caller that's helping drive that offense, but I would not be surprised if they make a change at defensive coordinator. And quite frankly, they also need to reassess what they're doing from a roster standpoint on defense, because they went younger last year. That didn't totally work. Then they brought in some more veteran defensive backs. Well, that also didn't really work. And so I think that they might just need a different scheme on defense. They definitely need a shakeup on defense, but the head coach who has got his team playing hard despite their record and also is coordinating one of the best offenses in the league, I don't expect him to go anywhere unless he wants to.
All right, so let me present it to you this way then. You're a prospective, a top candidate, like a Mike Vrabel type for a head coaching job. Chicago is going to be available. Let me throw two other potential scenarios. Jacksonville, I think a lot of people believe could be available. Vegas, with a high draft pick, I think a lot of people believe could end up being available. What's the job? How does Chicago look in comparison to those other jobs, given the presence of Caleb Williams? Is it likely to be the best job that's available this offseason?
It's a great question. I had an executive text me yesterday after the Bears press conference when Kevin Warren, the Bears president, was saying, this is going to be the most coveted job in the NFL. And the executive texted me, if it's the most coveted job, you don't have to say it's going to be the most coveted job. And that kind of showed where it is. And that specific person, who is not in the market for a head coach for their team, they're doing just fine, thought that Jacksonville would actually be a more attractive job than Chicago, which shocked me given Caleb Williams, given what they have really on offense and defense from a talent standpoint, and given how they've been on an upward trajectory, if a slow one. But I think the question is, Trevor Lawrence is more proven than Caleb Williams, but certainly needs some help. I also think that if you're going to Jacksonville and you're Mike Vrabel and you want to know that you're on the same page as the GM, you're likely going to be coming in with the GM that you are coming in at the same time, as opposed to Chicago, where Ryan Poles is staying in place. They've got a present GM structure that's a little unusual, and there is still a lot of work to be done with Caleb Williams. So I think that there are people around the league who think Jacksonville.
Okay.
Vegas is kind of in a completely different standpoint because they need a quarterback. They don't have the quarterback, at least for 2025 and likely beyond. And the other thing that's interesting, though, like there's Chicago, the heads up, or the upper hand, is they have a quarterback on a rookie contract, so they have a lot more ability to build a roster around him, whereas Trevor Lawrence is making a lot of money, and that's going to restrict you. I don't know that the Vegas job is going to be open. It could be, but I also think that when you look at teams like Vegas and New England, neither of those teams had rosters to win at a consistent level this year. I think that Vegas made an offensive coordinator change that has helped them, if not got them all the way. And so I think that some of this we have to be a little bit realistic about is so much turnover going to be better? And if so, you probably need to be bringing in like a Belichick type that you feel like this is the only way that we're going to get him if we get rid of our coach after 1 year.
Jori, great stuff. At Jori Epstein on Twitter is how you follow her. What else can we plug for you besides checking you out at Yahoo Sports?
Absolutely, yeah. Yahoo Sports is where I've got my sports content. My first book, The Upstander, How Surviving the Holocaust Sparked Max Bobin's Mission to Dismantle Hate, is also available on sale. So any of that is wonderful.
That's wonderful. Jori, thank you for taking the time for us. We really appreciate it. We'd love to do this again real soon.
You bet. Talk to you soon, Glenn. Thanks so much.
Jori Epstein covers the NFL for Yahoo Sports. Appreciate her taking the time for us this morning. I was trading some texts. I don't know. It's fantasy coaching season, I guess. I was trading some texts with some folks in football yesterday, and I was like, who? If you're Mike Vrabel, what job do you want? And these are friends in the football world, and they were like, hey, well, you got to make sure there's no surprise retirement that comes up between now and then, right? Like, and they were pointing out, like, what if John Harbaugh retires? What if Andy Reid retires? Because everybody all saw this comment from Kevin Warren of the Bears, like, this is going to be the most coveted job there is. And we're like, yeah, I mean, is that definitely? And then you start like doing the
like, who wouldn't want to work for me?
You're like, well, maybe, right? Because as Jori Epstein pointed out, most people believe Caleb Williams really is that quality of a quarterback. And as she said, he's on his rookie deal. So you have that advantage. You're walking into a spot where there is that guy. Hilariously, there were multiple like major NFL personalities this weekend that were banging the drum of they should bring in Lincoln Riley. I'm like, wait a second. You mean the guy that couldn't win with Caleb Williams? That's the guy that you think you should give the job of winning with Caleb Williams to? That seems insane, but, who am I? If you're the Bears, you would presume you'd actually want it to be an offensive-minded coach. Like, your head coach, you're pairing with your quarterback. So is Mike Vrabel the right guy? Is it that, like, you go to Mike Vrabel and say, dude, if you can get if you present me the offensive coordinator that is willing to come with you, then we'll talk about it? I don't know. In Jacksonville, do you think your problem is a Trevor Lawrence problem, or do you think it's something else? And so you say, hey, we could have a defensive-minded coach because we don't think that we need to work with Trevor Lawrence all that much. We think he's okay. He hasn't followed up on his greatest successes. It's complicated, man. It's complicated. I get weirdly interested in this stuff. Like, if you're Mike Vrabel, you're asking Andy Reid, dude, you're not retiring, right? Like, you're definitely not. Because if you're Mike Vrabel and Andy Reid's retiring, that's the get me there. Get me that spot. I don't even know who else the top candidates are. Ben Johnson will be a top candidate. And that might be more of what Chicago's looking for, is that offensive mind as a head coach. And so Ben Johnson will be high on that list. Everybody thought Bobby Slowick would be high on that list, but, like, the Texans.
Aaron Glenn is...
Yeah, I mean, like, he's definitely got to be in the conversation. But, again, is that for what, right? Like, who is the team that takes a defensive-minded head coach? I don't know. I don't know who that is. Today's show also brought to you by County Sports Zone. CountySports.zone is the website. You find everything you need to know about championship week in the high school football playoffs. This week in Annapolis, they're giving out titles. If you want to learn more about it, who's playing, when, how they match up, what they've done to get to this point, you go to CountySports.zone in order to find out everything you need to know about championship week. It's all brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Tuesdays, we preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Joining us now, PressBox fantasy football analyst, our buddy, Mr. Joe Serpico, back with us on GCR. Joe, it's Glenn. Always great to catch up. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Absolutely, guys. It's kind of crazy to say this, but we have reached the final week of the fantasy regular season. I can't believe we're here already.
That is nuts. That is nuts. All right, with that in mind, a lot of people dropped Isaac Guerrendo a couple of weeks ago. He's available in literally all 4 of the leagues that I play in. I assume that we have gotten to the point where whatever FAAB you have left, it's probably worth throwing the bulk of it at Isaac Guerrendo at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he is. We've been kind of waiting for it, for that home run edition for the stage of the year, and I think it's going to be Guerrendo here. Kind of stinks because I was one of those guys who was able to pick up Jordan Mason, who was just dropped a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Ooh, maybe I did something sneaky here. I'm not even going to get anything out of that." But Guerrendo, he did have one game this year, Week 8, against the Cowboys, where he played the majority of the snaps. He played 63% of the snaps in that game, and he finished as RB12. Had 17 touches in that game, picked up 85 yards on the ground. And one of those things you're going to notice about the guy can fly. He had the fastest time at the combine for any running back, so the guy can absolutely move. He can make an impact as a pass catcher as well. So, yes, if you have any FAAB money whatsoever, at this stage of the year you probably have, let's say, 20, 30%. I'm willing to spend almost all of it to land him because I think he is the game changer that we've been kind of waiting for.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at this point. Is there any value in any of the other 49ers in like just picking up another 49ers running back at this point?
Well, the only other one I'm aware of that's on the roster right now is Patrick Taylor, yes. Unless they have made a third move that I haven't seen just yet. But, I mean, it's also another situation. He could be the next in line to get hurt. There's nothing stopping that, too. So who's to say, we're another injury away from saying, hey, let's go pick up Patrick Taylor next week. So I'm still like Patrick Taylor would probably be end of bench if I am picking him up. And it's going to be hard to do that this week with so many teams on a bye. But that just makes picking up Guerrendo this week even more important because you're going to be feeding off against at least 6 teams that are on a bye this week. Again, the playoffs start next week, so you're going to have competition to get Guerrendo. So if you're one of those that's been holding on a little bit of money, do what you got to do. But I think we got to wait and see with Patrick Taylor until next week, and then that's when you kind of start stacking your roster with as many handcuffs as possible.
All right, the other significant injury this week was Taysom Hill, which is particularly problematic for a fellow like me who finally thought he had the answer at tight end when I was, holding on for Kyle Pitts. So, hey, I could go back to Kyle Pitts, who had another gentleman's 0 this week, or is the play to try to pluck Juwan Johnson off the waiver wire and hope that it's bad. It's bad.
Oh, well, tight end has been just brutal all year. I mean, it's starting to shape itself out a little bit as opposed to how it started at the beginning of the year. But Juwan Johnson, I mean, yeah, he is technically the next man up at tight end, but what he and Taysom Hill just do are just total opposites of each other. So it's not like a simple plug and play in a sense of that. The guy that I'm kind of going back to, I think we talked about a couple weeks ago how we both are Evan Ingram owners in different leagues. and he has been rather disappointing to say the least. And then I just keep every other week, I feel like I keep picking up Zach Ertz, and then I drop him. I pick him up and I drop him. He's one of those guys that always seems to be available in 50% of leagues. But every week he seems to find the end zone too. I don't know why people keep sleeping on him, why he's so widely on roster. But for some reason, Zach Ertz is one of those guys that's out there. He won't help you this week, obviously. But if you're struggling to find a tight end, I'm just willing to ride him at this stage of the season because at least he's getting consistent looks as opposed to some of these other tight ends. We're really just begging for numbers at this point.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he's not even available. Not only could he not help me this week, but he's not even available in one league. I'm down to either sticking with Kyle Pitts or Johnson or Gesicki. That's what I've got left for me in that league.
I mean, if I got to pick between those three, see, Gesicki was so good early in the year, but that's when T. Higgins was out of the lineup. So, that's why I can't really rely on him. I mean, let's face it. I know it's probably not the answer you want to hear, but of those three, I think Pitts is your best bet.
Shut up. That can't be where we are as a society. I refuse to believe that that's what we're dealing with here. Or I could also hope that Jake Ferguson continues to not play because I do have Schoonmaker, but I don't know what's going on there. All right. Yeah, it's a good time. We're chatting with Joe Serpico, PressBox fantasy football analyst. I don't feel like there were any other significant injuries this week, correct?
Injury-wise, not really. The only other one that I kind of have an eye on, let's see what's going on with CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. I definitely missed – it seems like he missed most of the second half with whatever he's banged up with. That allowed Brandon Cooks to kind of come back from his own injury and become the de facto number one again. So if CeeDee Lamb is, in fact, out this week, even if he's not out, I kind of like the matchups for Brandon Cooks because they've got the Bengals, who we've seen now are just consistently getting scorched every week, and then the Panthers afterwards. So two defenses that are definitely on the bottom half of the league when it comes to pass defense. So Brandon Cooks is probably the only other one that I'm keeping my eye on as a potential flex play for this week.
I saw you put Russell Wilson on your list this week, and for example, in our 2-quarterback league, I've been holding Russell Wilson, although I chose not to play him this week. Idiot.
Oof.
Yeah, it's what it is. I mean, although, oh God, I don't even remember who it is that I played, and it wasn't. Oh, Anthony Richardson is who I played, and it wasn't bad. It was just 4 points less. I say all that to say, who are we playing Russell Wilson over at this point? If you're talking about being your singular quarterback, who is it that might be your quarterback that you would say, dude, I'd rather be playing Russell Wilson at this point than playing, insert name here?
Well, for this week, it's a little bit different because the note I made in there is I do not like his matchups the rest of the way. He's got the Browns this week, but then he's got the Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs in 3 straight weeks, all in the fantasy playoffs, and those are 3 of the Ravens are starting to turn around on their secondary, but they're 3 of the better secondaries in football right now. So I'm not too crazy about Wilson for the rest of the way, but if you need somebody for a bye week fill-in for this week with – you got Nix, Richardson, Daniels, Lamar, and C.J. Stroud on a bye this week. So, Wilson is probably a top 12 pick this week, but I am not starting him the weeks after that. Will I start him over, let's say this week, am I starting him over Stafford? Absolutely. I'm trying to think of somebody. Sam Darnold, I'm probably starting him over him as well. So, Wilson does have a decent matchup this week with the Browns, but then after that, I'm to be honest, I'm probably looking at Caleb Williams, which is the other guy listed in there. And then that was put out yesterday. It was before we saw what happened last night. But I think I'm probably trusting Jameis Winston over Russell Wilson when we get to the playoffs as well.
You don't lose more points if the pick turns into a pick six, for what it's worth. It's still the same lost points for an interception and a pick six. That's the way that it goes. All right, Griffin, go ahead.
Yes, is Parker. I feel like I already asked about Parker Washington a week or two ago. But Parker Washington, have you seen more out of him that I guess that you do pick him up now, or is there better ways to attack wide receiver?
I was arguably going to put him in there as the third wide receiver this week. I just kind of like the other two guys. Obviously saw a significant increase in targets this week. I believe he had 12, his best game as a pro. It's just, for me, it's hard to trust anybody with the Jaguars right now, especially when it sounds like Mac Jones is going to be the quarterback once again this week, based off of that nasty hit that Trevor Lawrence took over the weekend. Again, it's just I'm really struggling to start any Jaguar now. Again, we're in a weird week, so if you need a wide receiver flex play, he's a decent option. I'm probably still going with Brandon Cooks or even a Nick Westbrook-Akinyi over Parker Washington. But if you're in a situation where you really need somebody, he's not a bad flyer.
Anything else?
And then in my league, I happen to have Sam Darnold available. So I have Jaden Daniels on bye, and I've been rostering Tua, but Tua plays the Jets this week. Would you be scooping up Sam Darnold, who plays Atlanta?
I do like that matchup better. Yeah, okay. If I had to pick between the two, I would much rather deal. The Jets are kind of lackluster this year, but I think that's more of an offensive thing. I still think their defense is pretty solid, so I would much rather take Darnold against a shaky Falcons D as opposed to the Jets D.
Let me ask this question that I always get to. Anything like, have you looked at a defense that you say, by the way, for the playoffs, incredible matchups, that's worth holding for the next week to start looking at what you might be doing for the playoff matchups?
I listed two this week. They're two of my favorites outside of, your some of the teams that are obviously not going to be available just because people most likely are holding on to, let's say, the Eagles and teams like that. But the one that I've got, the main one I have down is the Arizona Cardinals. If you have any Cardinals, whether it be offensively or defensively, you're in a good spot because their matchups the next 3 weeks are incredible. They got the Seahawks, they got the Patriots, and then they've got the Panthers. So those are definitely a defense that I'm keeping an eye on. They finished as a top 10 defense 4 weeks straight, which I had no clue until I figured out those numbers, and then I just mentioned what they have upcoming. The other one I listed is the Colts, but they are on a bye this week, so they are one of those, like if you have an extra room to stash, okay, you can do it, but it probably makes more sense to wait till next week. But they play the Broncos, then they play Tennessee, then they got the Giants, so again, another three kind of weaker teams to kind of keep an eye on. A lot of people are going to, ride, let's say, the Lions and the Steelers. I just mentioned that, that brutal schedule the Steelers have upcoming. Go away from those teams and play the matchups. This is the time of year when you play matchups. You just don't, especially for your kickers and defense, don't just stay loyal to somebody you have been all year. You want to play the matchups.
No doubt about it. Joe, anything else that's on your mind going into the final week of the regular season?
Just two little notes. One being the snow has become a factor. Yep. I think that's something we need to start keeping tabs on. Yeah, it's cool to watch, but for fantasy purposes, it's not the best. So the game the other night between Allen and Purdy, they only threw 36 passes. So it wasn't too pretty for any of the receivers.
I don't think anybody that started Josh Allen is all that angry about.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. Especially with you get the touchdown pass to yourself essentially there. Yep. The other thing being if you're one of those guys that is out of it right now, set your lineup still. Don't be that guy that's not setting your lineups, making it, kind of hell for the rest of your league mates. Still set your lineups. Make the other teams have to win too to kind of make the playoffs the way they're supposed to be. So just don't be that guy that's kind of just, I'm out of it. I'm not going to mess with my team anymore. Now, with that said, don't be going crazy on the waiver wire. I don't think that's fair, but at the same time, make sure you set a lineup just to make it fair around the league.
All right, he is Joe Serpico. PressBoxOnline.com is where you see his stuff. You follow him on Twitter at Joe Serp as well. Joe, appreciate you, buddy. We'll get ready for week one of the playoffs next Tuesday. We'll talk to you then, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, guys. Looking forward to it.
It's Joe Serpico, PressBox Fantasy Football Analyst with us here on GCR. So I'm sitting at home last night watching the end of the game, and I get a text from our friend, our buddy Steve Johnson, of course, former Oriole and local boy done good. And it's flabbergasted. And I'm like, what the hell is what's Steve so mad about? I don't understand. And so I wander over because we both play in Ryan Ripken's Fantasy Football League. And I wander over and I do the math. And he was playing against one of Ryan's buddies. And he was up going into Monday night. He was up by 37 points. And he was going up against Jerry Jeudy. And Jerry Jeudy, of course, scored 40 points.
Yeah.
So when he texted me, it was before the final pick six. And he, at that point, was still up by like a tenth of a point. So as long as Jerry Jeudy didn't catch a ball, he was good. And so we were texting back and forth, and I'm like, dude, normally I root against you, right? Like, because that's just, we have this bit of a rivalry. But I don't know Ryan's buddy, so I am going to root for you, and I'm going to hope for your case that Jerry Jeudy doesn't catch another ball. The next thing that happened is the pick six. And when the interception happened, I was like, good for Steve. Because you're thinking, like, he's just going to be downed. Game's over. Yeah. Browns don't see the ball again. And, of course, nobody bothered to touch him. And he's like, hey, I'm going to hop up and go score a touchdown. And so Steve's texting me curse words. Why couldn't he just stay down? Sure enough, Browns now totally out of the game. Third play of the drive. Over the middle to Jerry Jeudy. Ball game. And I think it eliminated Steve from the playoffs as well. Rough night for anybody that was going up against Jerry Jeudy. As, 40 points. But Jameis Winston, of course, had no problem throwing the ball to the other team. That's what he does. That's part of the experience. You're going to get that. He tried to do it against the Ravens. The Ravens just didn't want it. That's the way that it works. Joe Serpico is always brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Griffin, what's going on over there?
You're getting $7 in free slot play because every time that Baltimore's football team or Washington's football team score a touchdown during home games this season, Live Rewards members will be getting $7 in free slot play. You have to have your Live Rewards card inserted correctly into the slot machine. Any slot machine on the floor and be actively playing in order to get your prize. But once those touchdowns score, $7 in free slot play. At Ronald Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLE.
We are still going to get to 5 plays, but before we take our break, I have to say something about the Golden at Bat because holy F. And I acknowledge that I'm a guy that didn't like the idea of the extra inning rule, and then I saw it and I said, oh, my God, this is the best, right? And so somebody might say, Glenn, while everybody's dunking on it, is it possible that it's the best? Nope. No chance. And I'll give you the reason to me why I'm not even willing to keep an open mind about it. If I love the extra inning rule. I think it's great. I think it's been awesome for baseball. But if they said, hey, we want to do that in the 7th inning of every game, I'd say get the entire F out of here. The point is, you played a baseball game. You played a game. There's precedent for this. In hockey, they take somebody off the ice. They play 4-on-4. In football, if one team scores, they just let the game be over. They're just like, too bad. Game's over now. By the way, I don't like.
Is there any argument they should adopt that like overtime loss kind of like add that to the standings?
No, not at all.
I agree, but I just wanted to throw it out there.
Bad for part of what makes baseball great is we understand how wins and losses work, and it's not a point system. It's like we know if this team wins and if you lose,
you can't count on a couple extra points.
No, it's bad. It's bad. It's not. That's never been good in American sports. Ties are awful in football. It screws everything up. Like we have to find 80 different scenarios for the playoffs each week. Well, if this team loses or ties, if this team stop, it's not good. It's not good for sports to deal with those things. Wins and losses. That's what we're good with. Baseball also, it's equitable in baseball. The football one is a far bigger problem. The football one isn't equitable. Like both teams don't get. If you wanted to suggest that team should get less credit because the other team didn't see the ball, I don't know. If you lose in overtime without seeing the ball, then you should get a point. I'll listen to that. In baseball, it's equitable. Both teams get the same opportunity. If you lose, you lose. The point is you played 9 innings of baseball. You played a 9-inning baseball game, a full, complete baseball game. You had every opportunity to win the game. If you're complaining now about the second base thing, win the baseball game that you played. Don't do it. But you're not inherently changing the rules of baseball. You're changing the way it happens after you've played the baseball game. We came to understand extra innings just being a continuation of the game, but the notion that was always the way it had to be, that a baseball game is how many innings long?
It is 9.
9 innings long. So anything you do after 9 innings, like determining the winner, has nothing to do with the baseball game. It is a clear line of demarcation. They didn't change the rules of baseball. A baseball game is 9 innings. They changed what we do to solve the problem if you couldn't get a winner over 9 innings. Now, because we're so used to something, we screamed and we did a lot of hand-wringing. But as I've said a few times, it turns out it's awesome. It's wonderful. And I'm very glad that they did it because it's been objectively good for the sport. That's not this. This is inherently changing the rules of baseball. And you could say, hey, they did that once with the 3-batter thing. Like, that was inherently changing the rules of baseball. And I don't disagree. I don't. I actually thought that was foreign, and I didn't like it. I didn't like banning the shift either. But I also got the banning the shift was closer to the concept of baseball. Like, when they invented baseball, they wanted players to play positions. That was the idea. Hit them where they ain't, right? Like, not move them to where they're hitting them. So I could understand that the concept of the sport was altered more by the introduction of the shift than by the banning of the shift. I don't like banning the shift because, at some point we really couldn't convince these hitters to go the opposite way, really. But I can live behind the idea of the way that the spirit of the rules of the game were not to have 4 infielders between first and second base. That's not, when the game was invented, the concept of how the game was invented. The concept was a player at every position. So I get it. The pitcher thing, that one to me has more merit of actually altering the rules of baseball. You understand, again, I think it's been objectively good because the product is better. It is. We got to deal with that. Pitch clock's been a good thing. The games move at a better pace. That's a trade-off that I'm willing to make in the end. Like, if you said, hey, you can go back and redo the 3-batter thing, you could undo it, I'd probably be inclined to say I won't. Even though it did fundamentally change the sport, it changed it to address something that we all acknowledged was a problem within the game, which was the pace of the game. And the product has improved with a better pace of the game. And as much as we all hate Rob Manfred, these have also been objectively good things. This ain't that. This doesn't solve a problem. This is objectively bad. It's one thing to say, hey, we got to do something about pace of game. It's an issue. Okay? Some people would say, I don't care about that. But I think most casual fans would have said, you're probably right. The games are going too long. We want to go to a baseball game on a Tuesday night. We don't want to be there until 11 o'clock. This is as foreign gets. I mean, this is let dads hit. Like, that's what this is. You're in the middle of your kid's Little League game, and they're like, hey, it's close, so why don't you let the dad hit this time? This is insanity. This is separated from reality, from legitimate competition. This is bat-ass. The fear is that they don't normally float these things out there because they're not going to do them. That they're at a place where...
Or something along these lines. Did you explain what the
the golden at bat? Yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard, I feel like everybody got worked up about it. The golden at bat concept is that at one point, any one time during a game, you can put anybody at the plate. No matter what the circumstances are, no matter that they could have just been walked.
So Aaron Judge is playing a game in Kansas City. We can bring him to the plate.
Yeah, somebody on your team. Somebody could just be walked, and you could just say, okay, now they're gonna hit again. Anybody can hit one time during a game. That person, no matter what's going on in the game, no matter whether they can hit. To my understanding, they could have been removed from the game already for a pinch hitter, and there's like no rules to this. I think one of the things that I read is that like they're considering that you would only be allowed to do it if you were trailing, which again is a farce. That's the say whatever you want. It's a farce that this new kickoff in football, which sucks. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's done nothing. It's no more interesting. I get the players like it because they don't have to run down the field anymore. If you're telling me there's been fewer injuries, you're going to tell me there's been fewer injuries. It sucks. It's objectively bad. And it's taken out the one thing that was still kind of cool about kickoffs, which was the surprise onside kick. That every now and then you got a moment where you didn't expect it, and holy crap. It's the same amount of returns. Nothing's really changed about that. It's made you no less inclined to have to be back from the bathroom in time for a kickoff. It sucks. But it did get rid of a strategic element of the game and instead replaced it with advantage for the a trailing team is allowed to have all of the plays at their disposal. But if you're winning, you have to play with your hands tied behind your back. It's a farce. And this is a farce as well. It's a farce to have a different set of rules for a trailing team than there are for a team that's ahead. It's a farce. It's nonsense. But everything about this is farcical. Baseball, this is inherently the just eat ice cream for dinner. Don't wait for you don't need to eat your vegetables. Just eat ice cream. You like ice cream, right? So why don't we just eat it for dinner? Why are we bothering with green beans? Let's just eat ice cream, right? Like, let's just always have ice cream.
You're right. You're onto something.
Give everyone the gratification that they want. It's nonsense. It's utter and complete nonsense. And the argument that somebody makes is, well, didn't you enjoy Ohtani versus Trout in the World Baseball Classic? Well, now you could have it more often. Okay, because Ohtani's going to come in and pitch in the what? Like what? What are you talking about?
Well, you can do it.
Like what are you trying to say?
You could have the golden rule in the second inning. You know, you can use it then if you want. Right?
I guess. Why you would? That would be
base is empty and
yes, that would be bonkers. Like we're trying to force something as this is why it's great. But we know exactly what you want to create more dramatic moments in regular season baseball games because regular season baseball games are kind of So how can we force regular season baseball games to feel more significant? Why don't they go ahead and introduce an in-season tournament? Do funky logos on the grass. Inherently, people are either going to want to go to a baseball game or they're not. I've got an idea. Why don't you have more teams that have good players? Crazy thought. Instead of changing the rules, maybe teams besides the Dodgers sign baseball players. I know it's wild. I know it's out there. I know it's a little nuts. But maybe if you worked on that, it would make more regular season baseball games seem more compelling than if you tried to force Rock and Jock Hoop to be brought out so that you could score 50 points in the 8th inning. It's farcical. And we all need to dunk on it because it's clear that it's being put out there because they're thinking about doing it. And as I said, it's possible that this one is so outrageous that they want to put that out there so that whatever lesser outrageous thing that they end up doing, we find to be more palatable. Like, well, at least they didn't do that insane golden at bat thing. Sure, they said that if you play with no pants on, it's you get an extra out in the 5th inning, but I don't know. It seems better than the golden at bat. It's possible that it's a red herring, but it's more likely that they're genuinely thinking about doing that, and they're trying to run it out there and see how people feel about it, stakeholders feel. And we need to loudly say, no. No. This instant gratification thing, we can't listen to more than 10 seconds of a song on a Super Bowl halftime show. So God, why do we ever let the second baseman hit? He's not a good hitter. We just get him out of the lineup entirely. Let's just make it so that you pick your 3 good hitters and you rotate through those 3 good hitters the entire night. Right? Give everybody the instant gratification they want. Why ever let anyone besides Juan Soto take an at-bat in the game? Yeah, they can play in the field, but why let them hit? They're not very good. It's effing nonsense. It's nonsense. You want more regular season games to matter? Start here. There's too many of them. Now, that would require you to give up regular season games and gates, so we know you're not going to do it. So if you're not willing to solve that problem, then again, maybe solve the problem of the talent disparity. The fact that in a handful of cities, they're excited about the start of baseball season. And in the majority of them, they're indifferent. Now, that would require you to radically change the game in adopting the same policies that every other major American professional sport has. Salary cap, salary floor. It would require you to say, hey, this one agent isn't going to run baseball. And might require you to suffer through a significant work stoppage, which would suck and would hurt. But going at that route makes 1 billion times more sense and is better for a much larger number of stakeholders than fundamentally changing the sport. Because, again, we can do lots of things. People like the Savannah Bananas. Why don't we just do that? Play every game by banana ball rules, man. Let's make it pro wrestling. That's what if it's just about giving the people what they want, why have Major League Baseball? Sometimes your team loses. Why don't you present a scenario where your team always wins?
Okay, see now.
Yeah.
Now you're
the Orioles,
now
they play 162 games next year against the Party Animals, and they're guaranteed to win every single one of them. At some point, you got to decide if you're a sport or not. We all understand that leagues want to make more money. They want to, I get it. But inherently, you're also the steward of a game. And it requires you to recognize that, this is the game. And we do whatever it is that we do within the concept of the rules of the game. I get it. There are people that didn't like giving up pitchers hitting because they thought it was in it. One of the leagues didn't have pitchers hitting. This is nonsense. It's a farce. It's an utter and complete farce. Come back in. We'll go over 5 plays that determine the story of the Ravens' loss. Fun. Let's do that. Let's talk more about it. We come back in. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Visit Harford County this holiday season for a brand new event. You'll feel like you stepped into a holiday movie. Harford Holidays is overflowing with the spirit of the holiday season. You'll be amazed by the jaw-dropping light displays, thrilled by a visit to Santa's workshop, and have the holiday time of your life with sleigh rides, a special vendor village, s'mores making stations, and so much more. It's a holiday light experience, new at Ripken Stadium, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, December 6th through December 22nd. For ticket information, head to visitharford.com. You'll have the happiest holiday season ever.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Brooks Dubose profiles Maryland basketball forwards Derek Queen and Julian Reese as the Baltimore-built duo reunites in College Park with hopes of bringing the Terps back to prominence. Also inside, meet college basketball players from all of the area's D1 programs. PressBox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, where you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along here on a Tuesday edition of the program. All right, let's do it. It's no fun, but 5 plays that told the story of the Ravens lost to the Eagles on Sunday. I ended up going with a theme here in what I think the story was, with one exception at number 5, and I think you'll understand it. But I'll begin there. My number 5 is just the last hurrah. That's the 4th and 8 play when they were down 21-12, and it was their last chance. And again, with what stands out from that play being, it seems like Lamar Jackson could have run for a first down and instead took a shot downfield. And, you know, is that because Zay Flowers was screaming and was angry? Is it because of there being a bigger thing with Lamar and running the ball right now? Whatever it is, it seems like there was a first down to be had. Instead, a shot was downfield, and that was when the game ended. Like, it was going to be up. It was an uphill battle, even with 6:18 left, to score twice and get a stop. But it was possible. That was the last hurrah, and it fits the narrative of Lamar and not wanting to run the ball right now. So it's number 5 for me.
Yeah, I had it. I had that one on my list. It was I had it one slot higher. It was my number 5 was this was the 3rd and 7 at the end of the third quarter. Sorry, 1 minute and a half in the third quarter, and the Ravens had the ball, and they took a deep shot to Nelson Aguilar with 3rd and 7. So at that moment it was a 52.5 yard kick for a field goal. And at this point we already do know that the kicking is it is very, very worrisome. So yeah, I don't love the play call here. I mean Lamar makes the throw. Aguilar, you can argue, should have been able to make the catch here.
I've gone back, so it's number 3 on my list, and you'll find out that my number 3 and 4 are paired, and my number 1 and 2 are paired. Gotcha. It's a theme here. It's number 3 on my list, and what I would tell you is that I went back and watched a couple of times, because the argument that Ken was making on the broadcast is if there's no bobble at all, he definitely catches the ball in bounds. And the answer is maybe. It's very close with the first foot that was down when the ball got there as to whether or not, even if he just catches the ball cleanly, he might have still been in bounds. I don't know that, and I've tried Zaprudering it, even though,
Okay, so you're arguing the throw wasn't necessarily perfect. But
I think the throw was perfect. I think it required a level of body control that Nelson Aguilar didn't have in that moment. I think it was a great throw. I think the throw itself was spot on. I still don't know, even with the spot-on throw that Nelson Aguilar, if he catches the ball cleanly, it's so close.
It was his knee landed at.
But there's 2 feet that are involved here. There's the first foot. It looks like from the first angle, if he catches the ball cleanly, he's definitely in bounds. And then they show you another straight-on angle where you're facing him, and in that angle, you can't tell for sure if when he caught the ball, the first foot was still touching the ground, or if it had come up, and then at that point he was only able to get 1 foot in. So it's just it's complicated. Ultimately, it was a play that wasn't made. Ultimately, it's both. I despise the play call, right?
Yeah.
That's not the call on that spot. And continue to and we got into the fight on the postgame show to say, well, the throw was there. Yes, but it's a high-level play that has to be made, and for the answer to be the best solution here is high-level play, given all of the circumstances. But add to it, the throw was there, and the play wasn't made. And so because of that, there's a lot of volatility about the play to me.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
Look,
make it a shorter kick, or make it a go. You can go for it on fourth and 2 or 3 or something. So.
Number 4 is still the missed 53-yard field goal. They're paired, right? I can't make one bigger than the other, because at the end, it's still a 53-yard field goal, and NFL kickers are supposed to be able to make 53-yard field goals. So that's my number 4, is the second missed kick. And it also is the reflection of you really just dominated possession for the entirety of a quarter to have nothing to show for it. That's the other, that to me, I almost argue that it's more significant than the other one, but we'll get to it. But you had possession for the entirety of a quarter with nothing to show. That's the damnedest part about all of it to me. So, yeah, those are my 4 and my number 3.
So I ended up not putting any of the actual missed kicks on it. I went with the third downs before. I had another, and then I had a third special team, or I guess only one special teams play, but neither of the missed kicks, just because it obviously, I guess I'll get into it. So, yeah, my number 4, so that was my number 5, the minute and a half left in the third, the Aguilar drop, or incompletion, whatever you want to call it. Then the 4th and 8 has to be on there. I mean, Lamar struggling to get the ball to Zay. You can make the argument he should have ran, and it looks like he probably knowing Lamar Jackson, needing 8 yards, you think he would have been able to get it. But yeah, that one has to be on the list. And then my number 3 was then before the first missed field goal. So this was coming out of halftime. They're moving the ball well. They're all the way down to the 15-yard line, 3rd and 5 at the Philly 15, and Lamar takes a 15-yard sack.
It's my number 1.
That's your number 1?
Yeah. It's my number 1.
I had it as number 3. I mean, yeah, it turns it into a 47-yard field goal, and I mean, at the moment, I think we still.
Well, I think it's bigger for the narrative. The narrative is they're marching down the field. They scored going into the half, and they're marching down the field with an opportunity to re-seize control of the football game. And so it's one that it costs you the 14 yards that makes it now a very long kick, but it's 2. The actual penalty of this is a 3rd and 5. You're moving the ball. You're reestablishing control early in the second half. And if you go in and score a touchdown, there's no panic whatsoever. Whatever happened in the second quarter is gone. You're good. You responded. This is the reason why you defer. You've done everything that you were supposed to do. You're back in front. It's 19-14. You probably maybe you go for 2 there because there's no real difference in 4 and 5. But so you're probably going for 2. Maybe it's 20-14. You're feeling comfortable again if you score a touchdown at that point. This is, it's the narrative of how the game flipped. It's the narrative of not doing the things to compensate for your kicker struggles, and it's the narrative of your offensive line was dreadful, and it left Lamar Jackson on skates all game, and immediately going 10 yards backwards on every play to try to get into a place where he could read the field. Awful. it really did come off as like the. Again, I'm going to pair it with. I'll just tell you, my number 2 is the first missed field goal, not the first missed kick, because the extra point was earlier. That's the field goal is number 2. That play's number 1, and it covers all of the narratives of everything. Those 2 plays, between missed kicks, offensive line play, and not compensating appropriately for the struggles, all the narratives are filled. So that's my combination.
I felt like I needed to have one defensive play in here, and maybe this is, and a lot of this could just be credit to Philly, because I mean they were the better team. They won. This was a 3rd and 7 in the 4th quarter with just inside 10 minutes left. So Jalen Hurts completes a pass to Dallas Goedert for 9 yards on 3rd and 7.
It's the one that I considered. I would tell you that it stands out more because the play before is the one where
that they
you're pretty sure that should have been
was that the intentional grounding?
Yeah. And it leaves you with this like combination of plays. This week I couldn't really put it on the defense, right? Like the story to me was I think they did everything they could do, and so
I felt like the story
didn't really involve. Now I get it, like that drive allowed the Eagles to put the game away, right? Like that drive ends up being huge.
And you're right, that is way closer to being intentional grounding.
For some reason we all decided we weren't going to talk about it. It's a wacky bit.
I think maybe we were just all so happy, like, wow, we got pressure on
that.
that.
Well, the one angle that we saw can't tell us that with certainty, right? Like, it's just over there. We're like, it's kind of in the area, but it doesn't look like it got back to it. I don't know. So it requires, like, a conversation. Hey, stop, chat with each other. At least the broadcasters to say, hey, can we go back and look at that again and make sure they got that right? And I don't know, maybe they did. Maybe it did get to the line of scrimmage. Maybe, right? Like, it's possible.
Are they going to argue that Goddard was in the area? Like,
I don't know where that. I mean,
he was running across the field and started running towards the sideline like late. Like
it certainly wasn't throwing.
But anyway, I mean, you know, the story being that when it mattered the most, the Ravens were not winning in the trenches. It was a 3rd and 7, and they have a 4-man rush, and they get absolutely no pressure on Hurts. He looks very, very comfortable. And then one-on-one, you know, in the secondary, that's going to be tough for anybody. But Brandon Stevens is one-on-one with Goddard, and you know he's just not able to stay with him. And they pick up the first down, and then 3 plays later, you know, Saquon Barkley gashes you, and that was the ball game. Like that was I felt like I had to have that one on there. That because the game it was still a 2-point game. Defense, if the defense comes up with yet another stop, it does.
It's a big drive. I get it. It just not putting the missed field goals on there to me.
My number 1 was this was the Philly punt. It was at the very end of the 3rd quarter that Tylan Wallace makes 0 efforts to go after, and this is, I mean, again, the defense does their job again. They get a 3 and outs, and you just are the special teams. Just you know that was that was the special teams was the story. And you castrate your offense again here by not even attempting to get this ball. They down it at the 5-yard line, and this drive never had a chance. Like it was.
Yeah, I can't make it number 1 because you did get the ball back, and that's on your offense. Like I get it. It's a long way to go, but I don't. It's a awful. You got to do better than that, but I can't make it number 1.
The special teams were the story. I felt like there was no. Both kicks I felt like were equal, and I didn't want to pick just one, because I wanted to get other plays on here. Just because it happened already in the game that you let them down you at the 1-yard line. And you're gonna let it happen again, and obviously, I mean, it brings up the question: why is Tylan Wallace out there? Because we've already seen him bobble 2.
Somebody would remember. Somebody would remind you, hey, but you also saw what he did in the Rams game last year, right? Like to pretend like Tylan Wallace has never been a punt returner, and I know we're all feeling the same thing, would be.
I don't know what to do about it. Like
it's
because I do agree with you. Yeah, I know when he can. I mean, we saw the play against the Bengals the other night where he broke off the 80-yard catch and run. I mean, he's clearly capable of explosive plays, but I mean, sometimes we got to start looking at it at what cost. And he's not Justin Tucker. He's not a Hall of Famer. Like he's Tylan Wallace. It's almost amazing he's been around as long as he has.
It's not on my list. It's something that, like, if we did a 10 plays, it would be in there maybe. But yeah, I think it's crazy.
It was for special teams being the story, and
yeah, but the special teams.
This is something that you feel like you can control. Like the kicks are to a degree fluky, maybe.
No,
like
no, you're an NFL kicker. You got to make the kick.
All right, well,
you got to make the kick.
The rest of the league went 50% this weekend.
I understand that. I understand, and if I was in one of those places, it would probably be something that I would reflect on as well. We'll get that up at GlennClarkRadio.com. 5 Play is also brought to you by the print issue of PressBox. Still a little bit of time to pick up this print issue of PressBox, featuring Juju Reese and Derek Queen on the cover. It's available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. You can read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. Come back in, tidbit, two-bit, or wrap it up. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
PressBox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Adebayo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/gameday or PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/game day.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The top high school basketball talent from across the country returns to the Wycomico Civic Center December 26th through 30th for the Governor's Challenge presented by Pohanka of Salisbury. Witness 5 full days of elite competition featuring over 140 high school basketball teams from 16 states plus Canada. Multiple top 10 teams and nationally ranked players will display their talents on the court. Don't miss the best experience in high school hoops. For tickets and info, visit govchallenge.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we wind down for a Tuesday edition of the program. Let's get a tidbit.
1 second.
Oh, good. All right. We'll do it. We'll do it again. Is there anything we didn't cover today? Is there anything else? What happened? Who else played last night? UMBC lost to Georgetown. That one.
Yeah, they were close at halftime, and then.
Yeah, it didn't go so well from there, unfortunately for them. And Loyola beat Coppin 68-57, so Coppin's still winless on the season.
Heck, Loyola.
Kind of what it is.
Throw them a bone here?
No, I don't think they owe it to them to throw them a bone. I did see a story this morning that you hope is significant, which is that Maryland got an $18 million gift from an alum named Stephen Schonwald, who apparently has been an executive with the Chicago Bulls that I just did not know about. And hang on a second. This is from the University of Maryland. He has directed $10 million to Maryland athletics in support of top priorities for the athletic department, $8 million to the Robert H. Smith School of Business to endow its sports management program and to provide scholarships for students taking courses in it. The program, as well as the Xfinity Center, Pavilion, football practice fields, will be named for him. The Stephen Schonwald Russ Potts External Operations Suite in the Xfinity Center will honor him and his former mentor at Maryland. It doesn't say where the money's going. I had seen where Jeff Erman had said that there was the expectation that there would be some more NIL money this year coming from Maryland, which is good because, as was detailed in that book, The Price, the John Talty, Armin Katan book about college football in the NIL era, Maryland was at the bottom of the Big Ten in NIL money and budget for signing players, and it's why I'm not going to react like some of you do that just say, oh, Mike Locke's got to go. Because, I recognize that there's a far bigger picture of what's happening here. But I get it. It's not saying 4-8 this season is okay either. Either Maryland's going to be able to compete in the Big Ten monetarily, or they're going to have to take a hard look at whether or not they're a part of the super conference, right? The best argument now for being in the Big Ten is whenever we get to it's just the Big Ten and the SEC, and we all know that that day is coming, you want to be positioned for, well, we got to be in one of those leagues. Well, if you can't do it, if you can't swim in those waters, then do you? As I said before, Arizona State's not good. They're not suddenly a dramatic. They got a great running back. That kid Scadaboo is nice, and their quarterback's good. Levitt, is that his name? Levitt?
Sounds right.
But that's not he's not a high-level quarterback. He's just good for college football. They're not going to go compete in the college football playoff, but they are compelling as hell to their local fan base because they're in a lesser league. And in a lesser league, they were able to compete. And that's the reality of what Maryland is facing now moving forward. Can you swim in those waters? You need a lot more NIL money. You need a lot more support. And there's no reason to think that that's coming. I can't imagine. Mike Locksley is the most likely person to generate all that from Maryland. Who the hell else would it be? My God. So we'll see, and I don't know if that $10 million is going towards any of that or is just going towards fixing bathrooms at the stadium. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is, but they need money.
So you think the bathrooms need to be fixed?
I don't know. You know, to get better popcorn for the. I don't know what the earmarking is.
What was his name? Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Enjoy your popcorn. All right, now try again. Tidbit.
The top high school basketball talent from across the country once again returns to the Wycomico Civic Center December 26th through the 30th for the Governor's Challenge, presented by Pohanka and Salisbury. Witness 5 full days of elite competition featuring over 140 high school basketball teams from 16 states plus Canada. Multiple top 10 teams and nationally ranked players will display their talents on the court. Don't miss the best experience in high school hoops. For tickets and information, visit govchallenge.org.
All right, very good. What you got for tidbits?
Let's go with some stuff from last night. We'll look at so the fun matchup, I guess, was Jerry Jeudy and Patrick Surtain going up against one another. Obviously, the revenge game for Jerry Jeudy did in fact live up to billing, I guess, because he had a pretty good game, as we already discussed. However, when he was lined up against Patrick Surtain, which was about 60% of his routes, which was 34 snaps, or at least 34 routes run. were against Surtain. Only 2 catches on 3 targets when Jeudy went up against Patrick Surtain. When he was lined up against anybody else, he ran 23 routes, and he had 7 catches on 10 targets, which went for 215 yards and a touchdown as well in there. So, Patrick Surtain pretty good, and the Browns were fruitful whenever Surtain was not covering Jerry Jeudy, as he clearly did have a little bit of extra. Last night, it was a almost scoregami. We had a 41-32 final. Just the second time that score has ever happened. The first time was December 17th, 1967.
Oh,
so
of course.
First time we've had that score in almost 50 years.
Well, thank you for letting me know that.
I did. I don't want to. This is tidbit. I want to get you into things that might not necessarily be on your radar. Jameis did set the record he is now the all-time single-game passing leader in Browns franchise history. First time they've had a 400-yard passer since 2015. Can you tell me who that was and whose record he broke?
Sure.
2015 Browns quarterback?
2015. Johnny Manziel.
No, it wasn't Johnny Manziel.
I didn't remember him throwing for 400 yards in a game.
Wow, I didn't. I apparently it was against the Ravens. I did not. It
was against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Austin Davis.
No.
Who the hell else was a quarterback for the Browns in 2015? Is that McCown?
It was Josh McCown. On October
I don't remember that.
2015. What was the day? October 11th, 2015. The Browns beat the Ravens. This was the 2015 Ravens.
Was that the day they ran that goofy trick play with Johnny Manziel where they kept him on the sideline?
Oh, and he was like,
and then like all of a sudden,
he did the little go.
I don't remember who.
And then it was like a flag.
Who was the coach then?
That wasn't Freddie.
I don't know.
No, was
I
that
have
Pettin?
no idea who it would have been. No clue.
That wasn't Mike Pettin, was it?
I don't know.
Was that before Pettin? Who the heck was the 25th? I mean, they new coach every 2 years.
Right.
But yeah, Josh McCown. Good. Well done knowing your Browns quarterbacks.
No, that was in 2014. So who was their coach in September of 2014? Browns coach 2014 season was Mike Pettin. Yep.
Okay. All right. There we go.
But it might not have been him that made the signal. That might have been whoever their offensive coordinator was. That might have been Kyle Shanahan for all that.
Jameis threw, 497 yards for Jameis, as well as 171 interception yards. And everyone's having fun combining. They're saying he threw for 668 yards because of all the interceptions, interception yards as well, which would be a record if this was a real stat. Yeah, 668 combined passing yards.
It was Kyle Shanahan, by the way.
Oh, look at that. Smart play by Shanahan. Well, almost. It
didn't
was a legal motion or whatever, a legal formation. The previous record, so 668 last night for Jameis. The previous record was 664 yards by this Jets quarterback going against the Ravens in 2000 actually, going against that 2000 Ravens defense.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
I remember that game. It was the final game of the regular season. The Jets outplayed the Ravens in that game, but the Ravens got 2 return touchdowns from Jermaine Lewis in that game.
Wow. He had 400, this quarterback, had 481 passing yards and 183 yards worth of interceptions.
It wasn't Vinny?
It was. It wasn't.
It was? Okay.
Vinny
right.
Testaverde against the Ravens on Christmas
Eve in 2000.
I was
trying to think about who my other guesses were going to be. I was going to go, I guess, Pennington next, but I don't know. Whatever. Go ahead. I got it right.
Third, we'll keep going with the Jameis stuff here. Third player since 1970, that is, with 4 passing touchdowns and 2 pick sixes in the same game.
4 passing touchdowns, 2 pick sixes in the game. Who would
the other 2? The first one was 2011. The second one was just 2 seasons ago, apparently 2022.
I don't. How would I know that?
6 touchdown day for Jameis.
Give me a team. This is nonsense.
It was a Charger in 2011.
Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers against the Green Bay Packers. And now I got to remember what team he was on in 2022.
Oh, good.
A Cowboy, maybe? No, a Bear? That should give it to you.
A Cowboy
or a Bear.
Or a Bear.
In 2022. He is currently...
A Cowboy or a Bear.
He's currently in the league.
He's currently in the league, and he might have been with the Cowboys, and he might have been with the Bears.
Yeah. I guess I could find this out, but what fun is what fun is that?
I don't know. Because it's just 2 years ago.
Yeah. 2 years ago. Oh, he was a New Orleans Saint.
Oh. Okay.
6 touchdown day for this guy. 4 of them through the air. And 2 pick sixes.
But he was a Cowboy and a Bear.
Yeah, he was a Cowboy during COVID, and then he was a Bear in 2021, and then a New Orleans.
Do I just not
Saints.
remember that Andy Dalton played for the Bears at one point?
I guess I forgot that he played for the Saints. It is Andy Dalton.
Okay, I don't remember him playing for
I
the
forgot
Bears
that he played for the
all.
Saints.
I genuinely have no recollection of him playing for the Bears.
I
I remember the Saints. I remember the Cowboys. I just don't remember the Bears. I believe you. I just don't remember it.
When I'm going to find out what his banner Bears moment was, like why I remember that.
Let's not do that. Can we? It's 12:20.
He started, and then Justin Fields came in to replace him. Okay. And then T.J. Watt had a good weekend. Where's my T.J. Watt stat?
We can go without it. I don't need to praise them any longer.
Well, it's not so much about T.J. Okay, he had 2 sacks. Has 106 now in 8 seasons through his first 8 seasons. That is the 3rd most sacks by a player in their first 8 NFL seasons. Can you tell me who he passed?
Well, I mean, it's
and the 2 ahead of him.
It's pretty high on the list all time, even if you take out the qualifier. There's not a lot of guys that have over 100 sacks. I don't know. DeMarcus Ware.
DeMarcus Ware is on the list. He is 2nd. So he's
Suggs.
Not Terrell Suggs. At least not in the top 4. I only have the top 4.
I'm trying to go with the guys at the top of the Bruce Smith.
Not Bruce Smith.
Reggie White.
Reggie White had 124 sacks through his first 8 seasons, so I think he's safe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think.
Jason Taylor?
No, we're looking for the guy that he passed, so had 105 sacks. Not Jason Taylor.
Michael Strahan?
Not Strahan.
Jared Allen.
Jared Allen. Jared Allen is who he surpasses.
I thought that might go on for a little while. I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. Very good. Now let's get tubular.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up tonight, totally tubular-wise. Not a lot on the local front. The Maryland women are in action against Mount St. Mary's. That's on Big Ten Network Plus at 7 o'clock. Big Ten hoop season does get underway on Peacock, a doubleheader, Northwestern and Iowa at 7, Michigan, Wisconsin at 9. The SEC-ACC event that Patrick Stevens brought up gets underway tonight as well on ESPN. Syracuse, Tennessee, 7:30. Kentucky, Clemson, cool 9:30 tip-off on the East Coast. Makes sense.
Why are you upset?
You're
gonna watch
it's
your,
a
you,
dumb
had, you had
thing.
to get your Kentucky Clemson fix.
That's right, because they got to do the top 20, the college football show.
Oh.
There's only like 6 teams playing this weekend, but they got to do another TV show out of it before that. That's the reason why they have to bump it back to 9:30. Just makes lots and lots and lots and lots of sense. There's also apparently a Big 12, Big East thing going on because Fox Sports 1 tonight has Cincinnati, Villanova at 6:30, BYU, Providence at 8:30, and then they've got a big Big 10 hoop showdown, Washington, UCLA.
Whoa.
Legendary Big 10 hoops matchup. That's 10:30 tonight on it. No, that's on FS1.
Oh, okay.
All the other college basketball you go to. There's really good ACC, SEC games. You can go to glennclarkradio.com and find it all there. A friendly this afternoon between the U.S. women and the Netherlands at 2:45. It's on TNT and True TV. Then NBA Cup continues tonight. Hell yeah. Maybe they'll do the Golden at that. TNT for Magic Knicks. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at the standings after tonight, see where everybody is. Magic Knicks, 7:30 on TNT. Warriors Nuggets at 10. Wizards Cavaliers at 7 on Monumental 2. Monumental has Sharks Capitals at 7. ESPN Plus and Hulu for Red Wings Bruins at 7. Oilers Golden Knights at 10. USA for Leicester and West Ham United at 3:15. The CW for WWE NXT at 8. Non-sports.
Yeah, we got a few. If you don't want to watch the college basketball, you can watch the CMA Country Christmas at 8 on ABC. I didn't recognize any of the announced performers.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
Well, and you're the country music king.
Exactly. Yeah, that is what they call me.
Yeah.
Selena Gomez will be on Colbert. Jude Law will be on Kimmel along with
promoting
Kyle.
a CMA Country Christmas.
Oh, that's how
actually.
Selena Gomez. Oh, okay. Yeah. I think she's got a movie called Amelia Perez. I think
sure she does.
Netflix. So Zoe Saldana's in it. It looks solid.
By the way, hey, Prime Video.
What'd they do?
So I have my HBO Max through Prime Video, and apparently you can't get the Yacht Rock documentary through the Prime Video or the HBO Max channel on Prime Video. So you have to go to the actual HBO. It's effing annoying because I don't want to. The point is.
Did you like how they spelled documentary?
Yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. At home, I've got a Fire Stick, and it's got a limited amount of space for all the apps that we have. So I don't want to download more apps. So when I was able to put HBO Max on Amazon, I said, great. Now I won't have to download another app. Tremendous. Go screw. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it.
So you can watch.
I shake my shillelagh at you.
So you can watch everything else that's on HBO?
Yeah, I can watch all the.
That is weird.
John Oliver show, Succession, that goddamn industry show that I gave up on.
Hard Knocks in season.
Oh, when does that start? Tonight?
That is tonight at 9. The
All right.
AFC North.
That
Hard
is
Knocks
relevant.
in season AFC North premiere.
I probably will watch, even though I don't watch Hard Knocks. I will probably watch that. It's at 9, you said?
It is at 9.
All right.
Yes.
All right,
So yeah, the Ravens surely will be featured. I'm not sure where they'll pick up or like how they'll tell the story, but yeah. That is on there. St. Dennis Medical, a new episode of that on NBC, and then on Peacock there is a Girls Gone Wild docu-series that they're apparently they have like an untold story series.
I mean,
they're
pretty salacious stories that came out of that.
Yeah.
Like Joe Francis is a creep.
Apparently he's getting interviewed like on air for the first time. Joe Francis is.
Oh, good. Can't wait to hear from
so
him.
if anyone wants
I'm so glad that he's profiting.
That is on Peacock.
That's a good thing. All right, everything else, GlennClarkRadio.com. Thanks today to Jori Epstein. Thanks to Torrey Smith. Thanks to Patrick Stevens and to Joe Serpico. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the...
Can you take me high?
Your heart was not in it this time. Do better.
Tab at
Glenn Clark. Nope, I don't. I just want you to do better. Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow on the program, Drew will be here. Chris Myers from Fox Sports. He's got a new book out. He's going to tell us all about that. Talk some football with him. He did a Maryland game recently, actually, which is... I was like, why is Chris Myers doing a Maryland
Bummer for him. Yeah.
Like, was nobody else available? They're like, hey, Chris, we're going to need you to go do this Maryland game. And he's like, I'm Chris Myers, right? Like, what? What are you talking about? It might have been the Iowa game. Why? It's very weird.
Maybe he just wanted to see College Park.
Maybe
like,
that's what
Can
it
I
was.
do this Maryland?
Yeah, right? Maybe he asked for it. All right, and stuff and things.
Yeah, I think we're going to catch up with Gordon McGinnis as well.
Oh, from Pro Football Focus. Yep. All right, very good. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the Governor's Challenge, Visit Hartford, Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, Green Turtle Sportsbooks, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, The Costa Sin, MSAA, Maryland Sports, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Maryland women. Duke sucks.